So car's just forming up, so what we'll do is we will go ahead and give you the grid of how they line up. So they'll start them all together, I believe, so they'll have the 7 UKs and 3 TRs will set off together because there's not too much of a pace difference between them. And so the grid looks shaping up as follows. You can see the car on pole position is the car on the left, which is the gold and black machine of Gordon Sawyer, car number 91. He starts on pole alongside Stephen Nuttall in the all-black machine on second. Row 2 is Greg Monks in car number 15. Of course, last year's 310R champion, and Henry Heaton in 4th position on the grid in a slightly different colour car. It was chrome blue last year, now it's chrome turquoise, and he did something here last year which no one else did in the 7 UK ranks, and that was win a race other than John Byrne. It was actually at the final chicane it happened when John Byrne outbraked himself, and Henry Heaton snuck through on the exit and managed to pick up that coveted first win in this championship that he's been waiting for the last couple of years, and now he's got a great chance to potentially go for the title now that John Byrne seemingly is not here to defend his 2 titles from 2019 and 2020. Row 3 sees a former Caterham champion, a very formidable one at that, in James Murphy. He was runner-up in the 310R ranks last year, and he's always quick in whatever Caterham you stick him into. He should be one to watch for from 5th on the grid. William Smith alongside him in car number 27. Welcome return to him. He was champion back in 2015 or 16, if I'm correct, but last time he raced was 2019. He took a year off and has come back, and he's the chrome-orange Caterham in 6th position on the grid. 7th on the grid in the 7 UKs is number 19, Grand Macdonald. He's the Caterham CEO. He's very much, if you're someone who knows TVR Tuscans, he's very much Caterham's very own Peter Wheeler. Peter Wheeler, who used to race his own product, the TVR Tuscan Challenge cars. It's very much the same thing in some cases for Grand Macdonald. So he's in his sort of factory colours of grey and green. They'll be hoping to put in a good result, and he's come all the way through from the academy. So he's come through from academy, through road sport, 270, 310, all the way through to the 7 UK ranks. He's taken exactly the same journey that all of his customers have taken up through the ranks through the last few years. So it's good to see him go through that journey and to see exactly what it's like. And now he finds himself at the top of the tree. Here we started alongside Rob Watts in car number 77. Then it's row 5 being Chris Aubrey and David Yates. David Yates also adapting to a Ford 7 UKK car for the first time. Then it's Tom Eden in car number 164. And Johnny Jarrett in car 121. And a welcome return to the Caterham paddock for Chris Cheesy Hutchinson, as he's in the bright green machine car number 78. He's towards the back of the 7 UK cars. He has had limited running in that car, particularly in these weather conditions, and he was out testing several weeks ago in wet conditions, or damp conditions, but on slick tyres, so he hasn't really had a proper chance to bed the car in. Only had about roughly an hour's worth of testing, so certainly learning the car, but he should be one to watch from 30th on the grid, and he'll start alongside Neil Fraser, who is also another driver who is new to the 7 UKs. Then there's a rows gap, and then we get back to the 310R contingent, where it's double defending champion from the last couple of seasons through the ranks, Lars Alexander Hoffman, who starts on pole position there. He was Road Sport champion 2019, 270R champion 2020. Alongside him, someone who's also been experienced in these cars, Pete Walters, who's on the front row in car number 88. Then it's Andy Lees and Chris Moore. Good to welcome Chris back on the grid for this season. He's on the second row of the 310Rs. Harry Cook and James Wingford are on row 3 for the 310R contingent. Behind them are Harry Landy and Douglas Christie, followed by Ben Lopez-Appleton, who will be lower than he would like to have been, in 9th position, and then Chris Welch to round out the top 10. Jeff Price is in 11th position, followed by Giuseppe Fillet. Henry Williams and Andrew Murgatroyd are on the 13th and 14th on their grid, followed by Gary Curtis, Martin Gleek and Luke Fryer, rounding out the 310R contenders. So the cars then making their way around onto the grid, and this should be pretty interesting. There's a lot of top drivers in the 7 UK Championship. We should remind you these are a brand new specification for 2021 because they've upgraded these cars to make them even faster. They now have dedicated Avon slick and wet tyres, which they'll be using the full wets, I'm sure, throughout here, unless some have potentially gamble for the slicks, which would be quite a bold move in these wet conditions. They also have uprated suspension and an increased rev limit on the engine to stop them from hitting the rev limiter, and they are at least 1 or 2 seconds quicker per lap in the dry. Have it even quicker in some cases, and the wet tyres, I've also heard, offer quite a lot of grip in these wet conditions that you can't really break traction too much unless you really force it, so that's going to be one to watch out for. They should be rapid, and also some exciting stories to tell in the 310R ranks as well. the runyourfleet.com course car just making its way towards the back of the pit pack, ready to go. The green flag is at the back of the field, and now the drivers look towards the red lights as we get to kick off the Caterham 7 UK and 310R Championship seasons here at Donington Park. Slightly damp and blustery, but let's see how they handle Redgate Corner as it's lights out, and we are racing. James Murphy and Grand Macdonald both haven't moved, they're both stalled on the grid. Everyone managed to get away and avoid them. They both do get away, but it's very sluggish starts as down towards Redgate for the first time, and it's Gordon Sawyer who leads. Cracking start for William Smith. He started, was it, back in 6th on the grid. He's now all the way up to 2nd, but Stephen Nuttall makes the move around the outside and holds on to the position. They squirm their way through. In the 310R ranks, it looks like James Wingfield's got the best start, and he's now had a think of Andy Lees as they make their way down through the Craner curves for the first time. So, in the lead for the 7 UKs, it's Sawyer who leads, defending the inside line from Nuttall in 2nd place. Smith is now 3rd, 4th is Henry Heaton, 5th is Greg Monks, 6th I think looks like that is Rob Watts. And they head down towards the 310s. This is quite interesting. Both Grand Macdonald and James Murphy are now they're covered up by a phalanx of 310R cars. I forgot my words there for a second. But they have to sort of pick their way through to try and get to the back end of the 310R group to try and make their way through the order. And so they're finding it increasingly difficult to try and get through. They're the black and orange car, the black car with the orange roll cage there, just passing the leaders of the 310Rs as they make their way around through the right-hander at McLean's and up towards Coppice for the first time. We see Andrew Murgatroyd there scrapping with Ben Lopez-Appleton as they come up towards the top of the hill at Coppice. I think that is Chris Moore in 92. It is, yes, Chris Moore in the charcoal grey and yellow machine. Battle on for the lead already as up the outside to try and make a move for the lead was Stephen Nuttall, but holding on for the time being is Gordon Sawyer as they splash their way out of the Robert chicane and down the pit straight for the first time. So Sawyer leads the way, Nuttall 2nd place. Move on for 3rd here as Henry Heaton looks to the outside of William Smith. Greg Monks is watching on the left in 5th position. But Smith now trying to hold on, but Heaton will have the better grip around the outside, making full use of those brand new Avon wet tyres for these 7 UK cars. And into 3rd position he goes. 5th position for Greg Monks, 6th for Rob Watts, 7th is Chris Aubrey, 8th is David Yates, 9th is Johnny Jarrett, and 10th is Neil Fraser, 11th place for Chris Hutchinson. And James Murphy is now already back up to 12th position in the overall standings as well as in the 7 UK cars. In the 310Rs, it is Andy Lees who leads the way in car number 3, followed by James Wingfield. Lars Hoffman there is going for it. Now, Andy Lees was in 2nd place, but I couldn't quite see him in the shot there. Unless he's had a mistake somewhere at Redgate Corner. Can't see anything out of my commentary box, but I definitely saw James Wingfield battling away there with Lars Alexander Hoffman. And they crossed the line, respectively, in 2nd and 3rd place. So Andy Lees actually has got a couple of seconds gap, so he's probably out of shot by the time I saw him. Leaders in the 7 UK ranks turn their way out through Coppice for the 2nd time and down the back straight towards the Robert chicane. And Gordon Sawyer then making the most of these wet conditions of these brand new tyres they've got for 2021. But Stephen Nuttall, very, very experienced. He's jokingly nicknamed the Roger Federer of Caterham racing because he's won a championship in all the first 4 of the 5 ranks on the Caterham ladder. The only one he's missing is the top title in the 7 UK ranks. He might well be in a position this year to get it if he can try and get himself first of all in front of Gordon Sawyer and then pull away. Fastest lap of the race temporarily did go to Stephen Nuttall, but it was then snatched away immediately by Henry Heaton in 3rd place, and the turquoise number 10. 310Rs come across the line behind them, and it is going to be Andy Lees who still leads the way by quite a margin, by 1.7 seconds from James Wingfield. Lars Hoffman is in 3rd place, 4th place now for Chris Moore, and Harry Cook in 5th, Douglas Christie, and it's Giuseppe Fillet, Andrew Murgatroyd, Ben Lopez-Appleton, and then Jeff Price rounding out the top 10 in that contest. See there that James Murphy battling away with Chris Hutchinson in the 78, and respectively Chris Hutchinson sending one up the inside of Tom Eden in the bright yellow 164. Eden looks for the undercut, and Chris Hutchinson learning very much as he goes in this new car. Of course, he hasn't raced for a couple of years. Last time he raced, he was the 310R champion back in 2018, and that was after a long few seasons getting his way all the way up through the ranks of Academy and upwards through the different steps on the Caterham Motorsport ladder. But he's took a couple of years seasons off and got this brand new car. Certainly trying to make the most of it here in, I'm sure, less than favourable conditions for everyone. We should also remind it's a slightly new format this year. It's not 2 30-minute races, it's now 3 20-minute races to make it a bit more like sprint races, and also to try and make sure that these guys probably don't wear out so much, because of course these cars have got so much more grip and power that they start to affect them physically in terms of how much fatigue they've got. Leaders in the 7 UKs head down towards the pit straight. We're looking at Chris Hutchinson still here as they turn through. Now James Murphy in the car number 3, they're just in the front of the shot. There he goes. He is already now up to, he's got past Hutchinson and Eden, and Johnny Jarrett as well. So he's into 9th place already, and his last lap, what did he do last time? It was a 1:28.906. So he's sort of roughly on leader pace. He's got a little way to go though. Hopefully with some clear air, he can start to put in a couple of quick laps to get close to the front, and he's got 15 minutes to do so. So leaders then, new fastest lap of the race went to Greg Monks that time around. He's got past William Smith. So Williams now down to 5th position now. Up to 4th has gone Greg Monks, last year's 310R champion. But we're now watching here, that's Johnny Jarrett in the 121. The black and red car with a sort of martini-style stripes down the side. He's battling with Neil Fraser, and also there was Grand Macdonald at the bottom of the shot. And now we're looking at some of our 310R runners here. 21 is Harry Landy, and he's got ahead of Ben Lopez-Appleton. So Lopez-Appleton was ahead of him on the pit straight, but Landy's managed to make a move on the run towards Redgate Corner. And just behind him there looks to be that's a battle between Jeff Price and Chris Welch by the looks of it. And that's a scrap for 11th, 12th and 13th in the 310R ranks as they turn their way through the old hairpin. Just peeking out of the commentary box to see where our 7 UK runners are. As they make their way down the back straight, they'll be with us anytime soon. As the final corner they come. And it is still Gordon Sawyer, but that gap of 0.4 of a second is looking a little bit closer this time by. New personal best for both Sawyer and Nuttall. 0.09 of a second apart in terms of lap time as that makes a move. Here they are on screen. Henry Heaton now in 3rd position, making the most of his pace that he has. He's only a 10th slower than the 2 cars in front, so making the most of the speed that he has underneath him in car number 10. And Greg Monks is also really taking to the 7 UK ranks pretty quickly as well. And he had a battle with James Murphy for the 310R title last year that went right down to the final race, and it was only due to a red flag which it handed out half points that unfortunately meant that unfortunately James Murphy just missed out by a couple, and it was Greg Monks' title for 2020, and he's now moved all the way up to the top ranks and certainly learning as he goes in these tricky wet conditions. Gordon Sawyer turns his way through McLean's with Stephen Nuttall, putting him under massive pressure as they come up towards Coppice Corner now. This is lap 5 in this race, still 13 and a bit minutes to go. Top 4 now separated the last time they came across the stripe by 1.8 seconds, so they really are the class of the field at the moment. There's William Smith in 5th position in the foreground, still trying to make his way through, but now Stephen Nuttall with a challenge onto the lead at the Robert Chicane. He gets his nose in front, Sawyer lets him have it for the moment, and in case he might outbrake himself, Stephen Nuttall manages to get it anchored up into the Robert Chicane, and he now leads the way here in this opening race of the season for the 7 UK and 310R championships. Sawyer will try and get him back into what slipstream he can get, and actually while he was taking the lead, it was also a new fastest lap of the race for Nuttall. 1:26.039 for the number 46. Nuttall tries to get back on the attack as they come through Redgate Corner. And Heaton, a big tail slide on the exit. You can see just how much, even with the wet tyres, so they're trying to push the cars as hard as possible, and they might give more grip in the wet, but even these powerful cars with roughly about, what, 180, 190 brake horsepower underneath them, they certainly do become a bit of a handful in these slightly less grippier conditions. Greg Monks, meanwhile, really is taking to this new 7 UK car. That 420R machine working beautifully in his hand. He's right on the tail of Henry Heaton to try and snatch away a potential podium place. Whilst we're looking at them, rest of the top 10 in the 7 UKs, we've got Rob Watts in 6th position, one of his better runs in a slightly bigger field. 7th place for Chris Aubrey, 8th for James Murphy, who's now got past David Yates, and then it's now 9th for Yates himself, and then Hutchinson in the top 10 ahead of Tom Eden, Neil Fraser and Johnny Jarrett, and then Grand Macdonald, who's at the back of the 7 UK contingent after he had that slow start away at the beginning. As we watch the 7 UK cars with the scrap for 3rd going on, Heaton then having to go very defensive to hold off a very feisty Greg Monks as they turn in through the right-hander. And that tighter line might not benefit the exit for Henry Heaton. He will try and get the power as much as he can, but even in the wet conditions, you have to remember the slipstream isn't as prominent as it is in the dry. If it was a completely dry circuit, Monks would have a massive toe down the pit straight, but because there's wet, it kind of it interferes with the slipstream or the spray around you, and therefore it's not as strong as you'd like it to be. Saw just a little twitch of oversteer as he went through Redgate, and that might just give a glimmer of hope for Heaton and possibly also Greg Monks to get involved. Stephen Nuttall now has a gap of almost 0.9 of a second and trying to pull away. Now he has a clear track ahead of him. Through the old hairpin, top 4 altogether. When they came across the line, the gap was 1.6 between the first 4 cars. William Smith is in a little bit of no man's land in 5th position. We're looking here at a battle between 12 and 77. That's Chris Aubrey, who's got past Rob Watts. So Chris Aubrey in the lighter grey and yellow machine, past the black and fluorescent yellow car of Rob Watts. but a different colour car last year. It was the bright red chrome we had on that car, rather than the sort of slightly more two-tone aspect that he has on this car. She has measured the 310Rs, who of course obviously also in this race too. Now Pete Walters has managed to make his way up to the lead in the 310R ranks. And there's James Murphy chasing after the lead at the scrap that's going on for 6th and 7th place. There's Chris Hutchinson up to 9th, and he's passed David Yates as well. 310Rs, as we continue to watch the 7UK battle at the front between the top 4. In fact, I'll cover the 310Rs in a second, because Gordon Sawyer actually got a really poor exit from the Robert chicane, and not only has he lost 2nd place, he's lost 3rd as well, because past him in quick succession they've both gone Henry Heaton and Greg Monks. So now the pole position man, an early leader, is down to 4th at the back of this pack. And what this might now mean is possibly Henry Heaton has got a clear shot now to go after Stephen Nuttall. But he'll have to keep one eye in his mirrors and alongside him, because here comes Greg Monks on the inside line. And that was a very late chop there to get in front of Henry Heaton, who just about lets him have the space. And Greg Monks, you can't tell it's his first 7UK race, can you? But you can tell he's a champion from last year in the 310Rs. He's certainly using all the expertise he's had over the last few years throughout the academy and up through the ranks to really push hard. We've got Stephen Nuttall there coming up to put a lap on one of the back markers towards the tail of the field. That's possibly Henry Williams, I think, who's trying to just stay out of the way of everyone. And this is the tricky part, particularly in these faster cars here, trying to go either side. Henry Williams smartly keeps out of the way and lets everyone through. It's good drive from Henry, so well done from him for letting everyone through. Now that Greg Monks has got quite a cracking run here for 2nd place. He's right on the tail of Henry Heaton, and he is now alongside, so he might well get a chance to hold himself in front if he's able to hold the line and put himself inside for another position, as we see a couple of cars running straight on to get out of the way of the faster cars. The car up there is the car number 23, which is on track. That's the Broad GP Special, I think the ex-Christian Zaruta car, which is Martin Gleach at the wheel. So he's now managed to stay out of the way. It's now 2nd and 3rd on scrapping amongst each other. Henry Heaton versus Greg Monks again. Gordon Sawyer watching on, and Heaton looks for the undercut on the exit of Redgate as Monks runs wide and off the road. Car number 38, that's one of the 310R machines, off into the barriers. And that is Jeff Price by the looks of it. And it is getting even treacherous. It looks like he's lost both of his rear wings, but it looks like that's possibly the only thing he's lost. Might have damaged the suspension slightly, but even so, where he is, he's going to find it increasingly difficult to get back on the circuit. So yellow flags will be flying there whilst he tries to recover from that little off. But now 2nd, 3rd and 4th practically nose to tail, as Stephen Nuttall has just about a second's worth of a lead here as they make their way up towards McLean's. And with 7.5 minutes to go, Andy McEwan, who's back in the box after some adventures around the Fun Cup paddock. You wasn't expecting that with this race going on. Just to fill him in on that side of things for those who just joined in as well, Stephen Nuttall taking the lead early on, and Gordon Sawyer, whilst he did start from pole position and also was as far as the lead, has dropped back to 4th in recent times. And so now it's now 2nd, 3rd and 4th battling amongst each other, whilst also trying to do something like Nuttall, who they've got to be careful doesn't get away too far, otherwise it's going to be quite easy for him to take his first win of the season.
Yes, making the break is such a huge part of Caterham racing. It's hard to get away from the pack, isn't it? But as soon as you do make that break, then it sometimes can be quite difficult for the chasing pack to get back to you. But lap times there, you can see Heaton going quicker now than Nuttall, so he's reeling him back in once again. They head through Redgate Corner. You can see visibly there the gap has come down with Greg Monks in 3rd, Gordon Sawyer there, the yellow and black machine in 4th, carrying a lot of speed there through Redgate Corner and getting right back onto the tail of the 2 cars ahead. That's the wet side of the road there that Nuttall was aiming for. Now, ordinarily, the outside line is where the grip is, but when there's that much more standing water out there, I don't think that's necessarily where you want to be. He gathered that together there, but that was a pretty scary moment at a very fast part of the track.
And Stephen, actually, it looks as though his pace has dropped off a little bit, so that little mistake he made there seems to really play into the hands of the 3 cars behind, who seem to almost recognise that they have to call a temporary truce to their battles to try and catch up to Stephen and try and put him under pressure. I thought we'd lost him for a second there, but it's in the mix of lapped cars that he's trying to get past as they come up the hill. But Stephen now getting caught up in that lap traffic, and that's not going to help. And one of the cars he's actually lapping is Ben Lopez Appleton, who I'm surprised he's as far back as 9th in these conditions, so he's not really enjoying life in the 310Rs as much as I think he or I probably thought he was going to, but not quite a satisfactory weekend for him by his standards, I'm sure, as the battle for 2nd, 3rd and 4th goes through. And that's not really helped Gordon Sawyer, because while Ben Lopez Appleton's only trying to keep out of the way and be involved in his own battle, all it's done is it's actually held up Gordon Sawyer, as now he splits those two, as now we see That's Andrew Murgatroyd, who is having a scrap, I think, with Douglas Christie, and that is over 7th and 8th position in the 310R ranks. To quickly just recap where they are with the 310Rs, it's Pete Walters who leads the way with 5 minutes to go. He leads ahead of Andy Lees in second place. Chris Moore is third, from James Wingfield in fourth. Last year's 270R champion Lars Hoffman is fifth. And then we have Harry Cook, Doug Christie, Andy Murgatroyd, and as we saw there, both Ben Lopez Appleton and Harry Landy. Through the old hairpin they go. Stephen Nuttall trying to very carefully work his way through this traffic as he glides past Doug Christie in a very similar liveried black and gold Caterham that Stephen Nuttall is behind the wheel of. 4.5 minutes to go in this first race of the season, and Stephen trying to get through this added aspect of lap traffic as best as he can. And there goes Greg Monks, who's now ahead of Henry Heaton. So Greg Monks is up into second place, and Henry Heaton back into third. So all this lap traffic really has played into, the most part, out of these top four. Looks to be it's Greg Monks that has played the hands of the most. There is Lars Alexander Hoffman. There are the leaders in the 310R just flashing through the shot in the front of camera. This is the scrap for 5th and 6th between Hoffman and Cook. And now we see the leaders here. A battle on for second place. Andy Lee's under threat from the 92 of Chris Moore, which is the charcoal and fluorescent yellow coloured car, but Andy Lee's in the golf colour machine just sends it back around the outside with a superior grip and holds on. And the traction that with the loss of traction that Chris Moore had on the exit of Redgate has only played not just to Andy Lee's hands, but also potentially James Wingfield, who is daring to go side by side in these adverse conditions where we've got all that standing water off the racing line. But it looks as though, for the most part, 92 Chris Moore has stayed in front. Yes, he has. So Moore holding on to third position as hard as he can, with Wingfield having one of his more improved performances. He's a little bit in the background in 2020, but he seems to have really stepped up his pace over the winter and some of the testing that he's done, and managed to get himself into the sort of area of pace that puts him into being a top 5 contender, which is quite positive to see. Just over 3 minutes left in this first race of the season. This combined grid, there'll be another one tomorrow. In fact, all of the Caterham races will repeat tomorrow, alongside some of the additional content that we have for Sunday only, which we'll touch on a little bit later on. But now, with less than 3 minutes to go, there is still places and victories and podium positions and trophies to be decided. Whether or not Andy Lees has enough here to hold off Chris Moore for the remainder of this race remains to be played out. Here he gets a little bit sideways, a lot sideways through the exit Robert chicane. Just flicked over one of the sort of little sausage curbs on the inside, or sausage sort of barriers or curbs on the inside of that exit of Robert chicane, and that's now really put him under threat from both Moore and also Wingfield. And also look behind them, because now got Stephen Nuttall challenging, as it's 3 abreast into Redgate corner. Lars Alexander Hoffman completely backs out of the way as he lets both Henry Heaton and Gordon Sawyer get through, and Greg Monks is back to 4th. So whilst we're looking at the 310R leaders, it's changed around slightly behind Stephen Nuttall, so it's now side by side for 2nd and 3rd in that contest between Heaton and Gordon Sawyer. Greg Monks, who was 2nd, is back down to 4th again. Stephen Nuttall there in the meantime, as now Sawyer goes back through to 2nd place, or does he, because he runs wide on the exit of the old hairpin, and back up the inside goes Henry Heaton, gets the traction on the exit through left-hander at Schwantz and Starkeys, and he's possibly going to be back through by the time they get towards McLean's. So here's something interesting. The two leaders, one leader's about to lap the other, because you now see the Pete Walters, number 88, he's now about to be put a lap down by Stephen Nuttall, as they continue to negotiate these very tricky conditions here at Donington Park on the first weekend of racing in 2021. There's James Wingfield working away at the wheel, just allowing both Sawyer and Heaton to make their way past in 2nd and 3rd. That battle continuing to rage. There's going to be, I think, one more lap to go this time by, because a lap time, the fastest lap of the race is 1:26.039. We've got 1 minute 15 left to go on the clock or so. So this will be the last lap for Stephen Nuttall. He's got a comfortable enough gap, but he can't really relax too much, as the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th place battle is really stuck in between the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th place scrap in the 310. So the two podium battles are in amongst each other, as both Sawyer and Heaton go either side of Andy Lees, which will give him a fright. Then they dive up the inside of Pete Walters. Taking advantage there was Heaton. He squeezes Sawyer onto the curb on the exit. Got to be very careful not to lose traction, but the wet tyres did their job. And now back into 2nd place with Henry Heaton with a very bold pass. He took full advantage of going either side of Andy Lees there into the corner. And then, just as Sawyer was trying to make a lap on Pete Walters, he pounced up the inside and just didn't leave Sawyer. Left him just about not enough room to force him to have to capitulate and let him have the pace. There we see there, that's Martin Gleek in car number 23, the white and fluorescent yellow car moving out of the way of some of the leading 310R cars, but Sawyer's now coming back at Heaton, looking round the outside at McLean's, has a look for the move, and I think that Heaton once again showed it on the edge of the circuit as Stephen Nuttall makes his way into Coppice for the final time, but second and third, these two will be on the podium, it's almost guaranteed, but in what order is yet to be decided. There's now just effectively 2 corners left to go at the Robert chicane, and it could be either one of them in second or third, but we'll wait and see how that plays out. As for Stephen Nuttall, he will be looking in his mirrors, possibly laughing to himself, because he's going to turn through into the chicane for the final time, and he will kick off his 2021 Seven UK season in the best possible fashion. And now he comes across the line to take the checkered flag, and it's a fantastic win for Stephen Nuttall in the 7 UK ranks here for Caterham Motorsport. It's a sprint to the line for second and third, and a typical Caterham finish. But Henry Heaton just punches the air with delight as he just picks up second ahead of Gordon Sawyer by 0.161 of a second, which was incredibly close. Fourth goes to Greg Monks, fifth to William Smith. And get this, after he had that mistake at the start, James Murphy still finishes in sixth. So that's an incredible drive back through from car number 3. There's a reason why I nickname him Superman, because he usually charges his way back through from the front, from adverse situations to a position where it'll benefit him the most, and he certainly has been able to take full advantage of that here with that first race. 7th place for Chris Aubrey, 8th for Chris Hutchinson, 9th for Grand Macdonald, so he managed to also put on a great fight back to wind up in the top 10, and then Neil Fraser also completes the top 10 ahead of David Yates, Johnny Jarrett and Tom Eden. And as for the 310R runners, we should give obviously credit to them, because it was Pete Walters who picks up the win for car number 88 for the 310R ranks. Then Andy Lee's in second place, followed by James Wingfield, Chris Moore, Lars Hoffman. And then it was Andrew Murgatroyd, Doug Christie, Harry Landy, Ben Lopez Appleton running out the top 10. And fastest lap of the 310Rs, I think, went to, I think it was possibly Andrew Murgatroyd, which is 132.819, so a good lap from him to get that. But heading into pit lane is a very happy and delighted Stephen Nuttall. He's always someone who works very hard over each winter to ensure he's in top shape for the new season, and that's all that work has certainly paid off once again, and he's certainly looking as though an early favourite, but there are some drivers who I'm sure will want to fight back in the second race tomorrow and throughout the rest of the year to make sure that Stephen doesn't have an easy run to the title, or at least makes it as difficult as they can if he proves to be the man to beat. So as we wait for the results to head up on screen to confirm the provisional results, and also to hopefully have a chat to some of our podium finishers in both championships. We've got 2 more races coming up today. The first of those is going to be the last Caterham action of today, which is the first race for the 270Rs, and then we also have Fun Cup coming up after that. Let's confirm the provisional results. So Stephen Nuttall then wins the first 7 UK Championship race of the season from Henry Heaton and Gordon Sawyer, with Greg Monks and William Smith rounding out the top 5. James Murphy recovers well to 6th ahead of Chris Aubrey. Chris Hutchinson, who picks up 8th on his 7 UK debut. Then Grand Macdonald and Neil Fraser. Then it's David Yates, Johnny Jarrett and Tom Eden to round out the 7 UK finishers. Then in the 310Rs, it's Pete Walters with the first win of the season from Andy Lees and James Wingfield. Then it's Chris Moore, Lars Hoffman, Harry Cook and Andrew Murgatroyd to round out the top 20 overall. Then it's Douglas Christie from Harry Landy. A bit of a lonely race for Ben Lopez Appleton, who want to perform better tomorrow, hopefully. Then it's Giuseppe Fillet, Chris Welch, Henry Williams, Gary Curtis, Jeff Price, who had that off earlier on into the tyres. Managed to recover, and then we had Martin Gleek, who was the last of the finishers, and we sadly lost Rob Watts in car number 77 after he either had a mechanical issue or went off the circuit at some point.
Stephen Nuttall. Stephen, if you'd like to just have a quick chat, quick congratulations everyone. It's tough work out there, isn't it? But it was a great win for you and a great start to the weekend.
Yeah, I'm really pleased with that, really pleased. I made a bit of a silly mistake in qualifying, which may well have cost me pole, but, you know, fair play to Gordon for getting that. But, yeah, that was difficult. When you're following, there's no visibility. That's the hard thing. So I was really desperate to get in the lead and just get some clear track. So when I got that, I thought I've got to just make it count. And then it's just keeping your concentration, keeping your head down, making no silly mistakes. And then it's a bit of potluck with the back markers, so it was okay-ish, but I think, you know, some may have had it worse or better, I don't know. But pleased anyway, chuffed a bit for that.
All right, well, congratulations. Second place is Henry Heaton. Henry, in this bright green car. Henry, if you'd like to just to have a quick chat with us. Congratulations, nice P2 for you, but of course next race you're going to want to go one better, aren't you?
Absolutely, yeah. Going to be chasing Steve down, but no, that was a good fun race. Good way to start the season off with a second place and a podium. But yeah, I'm looking forward to taking the fight to Steve on the next one. We've got 2 races tomorrow, so yeah, it's going to be fun.
Great P3 for you, Gordon. It's very tricky out there, isn't it?
Yeah, that was extremely slippy. Felt like the last race of the season, to be honest. We were so close. So many sketchy moments, but it was brilliant racing. Good, hard, fair race from everyone.
And you've got a busy day tomorrow. Any changes you're going to make to the car?
No, I actually hope it's wet like that, actually, because the car felt great in the weather. So I'm happy with that.
OK, Pete Walters, great result for you in the 310s. You've got to be really happy with that.
Yeah, really happy. Finished last year with a wet race and a serious crash that did some major damage to the car, so needed to get back on the horse. It was good to have a slightly scary first race, but yeah, it was good to get back out and sort of get those cobwebs out.
And of course, you guys don't have the luxury of nice treaded tyres like the 420s do. How hard is it to keep the car under control out there?
It's difficult. I expected a lot of them to get off the line quicker. And when I ended up in front of 4 of them around the first corner, all I was thinking was, well now what do I do? Because they're going to get me again in another corner. But yeah, it was tricky conditions. Full respect to the guys around me. I've not raced with those guys. They've stepped up from 270, so it was yeah, very, very respectful.
Andy Lee, second place in the 310Rs. Great result for you, but of course you're going to be wanting to go one better, aren't you?
Absolutely, yep. There's always tomorrow, 2 races tomorrow, so had really good test days here. Was quite a bit quicker than most those days, so hopefully in the dry tomorrow it'll be my day.
And from your point of view, we know Donington is renowned to be really, really slippery. Is it, as they're saying, is it becoming sort of really slick out there, especially with the avgas, as people keep saying, in the nearby airport? But we're saying tomorrow's meant to be better weather, but again, are you just going to keep the car as it is or make any changes?
Definitely it'll be a dry setup probably tomorrow, so roll bars back on and that sort of type stuff. In terms of slippery, yeah, it's great fun in the wet. You either love it or you loathe it. For me, it's always good fun. There's a couple of corners, last corner, the chicane, no grip on the way in, then it grips up, so you just got to trust it. And you're heading off and you're heading off and you're heading off, and then suddenly it turns in. So yeah, it's good fun, but requires some nerve, let's say. James
Wingfield, great third place for you. Conditions, it's trying to stop raining now, but as we said before, it's going to that horrible greasy stage, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Qualifying was really hard for visibility, to be honest. The race, the conditions were better. Obviously, a whole lot of stuff going on that we were trying to keep on top of. So, no easier mentally and really fun as well. So, we'll see what tomorrow brings. I think tomorrow's a bit more like this. So, hopefully, slightly nicer weather. I'm sure we'll still be getting wet though.
By the second half, they're up there winning races too. So it's going to be a great season of racing in the Caterham 7 Road Sports Championship, as it will be, I think, in the Caterham 7 UK and 310R Championships. And they're the next 2 grids that are heading out onto the circuit. So we've got 2 classes of car to watch in the same race here. The quicker of the cars, in theory, should be the Caterham 7 UKs. They'll start at the front of the grid. And then the 310Rs, it's roughly a 50-50 split. I think we've got 14 7 UK cars and about maybe 16 of the 310Rs, hopefully, heading out onto the track. They too had a race yesterday in those appallingly wet conditions. It was Stephen Nuttall that took the victory overall, and in the 7 UK class, with Pete Walters coming out on top in the 310Rs. The 310Rs were the more competitive of the 2 classes, certainly as far as the winning margin is concerned, because Pete Walters only won that class by about 3.5 tenths yesterday, whereas Stephen Nuttall took the overall victory by about 4.5 seconds. But again, wet conditions yesterday, dry conditions today. I think we'll see a very different kind of race here for round number 2 of the championship. That result from yesterday generates the grid for today's race. So the way they finished yesterday is the way they start today. So the grid is as follows, with number 46 Stephen Nuttall on the pole, with number 10 Henry Heaton alongside him. Gordon Sawyer and Greg Monks make up the second row of the grid, ahead of William Smith and James Murphy. Chris Aubrey and Chris Hutchinson, 2 Chris's together on row number 4, with Grand Macdonald and Neil Fraser rounding out the top 10. Then it's David Yates and Johnny Jarrett, with Tom Eden and Rob Watts at the back. Now, Rob Watts was a non-finisher yesterday, retired about 2/3 of the way through the race. So again, one to keep an eye on, I think, coming through the field, because Rob is a very, very quick driver. He qualified originally for yesterday's race in 8th position, so definitely should make a little bit of progress at the start. Then we skip a row on the grid just to separate the two classes, and then we start with the 310Rs, and the 310R pole, of course, goes to yesterday's winner, Pete Walters, with number 2, Andy Lees, alongside him, so 88 and 2 on the front row together. Then it's James Wingfield and Chris Moore on the second row. Lars Hoffman is on row 3 alongside Harry Cook. Then it's Andrew Murgatroyd and Doug Christie on the 4th row, Harry Landy and Ben Lopez-Appleton on the 5th row. Lots of these drivers moving up from the 270R category last year, as is the general rate of progression you expect to see through the Caterham Motorsport ladder. Giuseppe Fillet and Chris Welch make up the next row ahead of Henry Williams and Gary Curtis, Jeff Price and Martin Gleich, with Luke Fryer right at the back of the grid. So that's how the cars line up then, ahead of this second round of the championship. The 7 UK Championship being the pinnacle of Caterham Motorsport in this country. You do tend to see drivers stick around for multiple seasons in that category, as is the case again this year. We've got no John Byrne on the grid. John Byrne, the champion for the last few years in this category, but Henry Heaton, who was runner-up in last year's championship, he's here and was arguably the pre-season favourite, but didn't manage to win yesterday. He was second behind Stephen Nuttall, who was third in last year's championship. So Heaton and Nuttall, top 2 in yesterday's race, were the 2 highest placed returning drivers from the 2020 season. Then you've got Jake Swan and Harry Kramer, who were 4th and 5th in the championship last year. And again, they are absent at least for this weekend, but they may well be back a little bit later on in the season. Now, in the 310R category in 2020, it was Greg Monks that took the 310R championship, and Greg Monks for this season makes the step up into the 7 UKs. So the reigning 310R champion, although he's on the grid for this race, is not actually on the grid in the 310R part of the race. James Murphy, who was second in the 310R championship last year, the same is true. He's also moved up into 7 UK. So looking at Pete Walters and Andy Lees, I think they're both drivers that have moved up from the 270s. So, as is often the case with Caterham, it's all change as you move into a new season. Lots of drivers either making the step up to the next class on the ladder, or perhaps making their debuts altogether. I mean, Caterham racing is certainly a good way of getting into motorsport, and it has been a great proving ground for sports car and single-seater talent of the future for many a year, because as we made the point yesterday, you learn an awful lot from driving a Caterham, because they have zero aerodynamics, no wings, no downforce, so they move around a lot. They're quite softly sprung suspension-wise, so they slide and they lean, and they're barely ever going in a straight line, especially in the wet conditions we had yesterday. And so when it comes to learning car control, certainly there are worse things that you can do than spend a season or 2 racing a Caterham. And what it really teaches you is racecraft. You very quickly learn to be comfortable racing inches away from not just 1 but maybe 4 or 5 of the cars at very, very high speed, and it teaches you a lot about learning about the extremities of your car, just how close you can push it with people, where you can overtake, how to defend. It's almost impossible to defend in a Caterham, you could argue, because of the power of the slipstream. So if you could stay at the front of a Caterham grid for the duration of a race, then you're doing something right as far as your defensive driving is concerned. And for those reasons and many, many others, Caterhams continue to be a very, very popular place to go racing, Scott.
It does, and it's good to see quite a few returning drivers, but also those who are making that step up from 310Rs, one of them which is that man there, Caterham CEO Grand Macdonald, who I liken to being a modern-day Peter Wheeler. For those who know TVR and TVR Tuscan Challenge, the chairman of the owner of the whole group, used to jump out in his own car and race. It's good to see that Graham has not just jumped in straight into the 7 UK car, he's taken the same route that all of his customers have, going through Academy, Road Sport, 270 and 310s right up to the 7 UK. So he now fully understands as a driver now what it takes to go up the ranks and upgrade your car each time and go to the front of the field. So that's quite important, I think. It means he can understand his customers better, understands the product better, and therefore he's got first-hand experience. He can pass it on to any customers that he's looking to try and pick up in Academy, and therefore hopefully bring more and more drivers on as the years progress.
Yeah, absolutely, and he'll be able to give feedback as well to the championship coordinators as well, himself having, as you said, progressed through the ranks, and if there's anything they can do to improve the customer experience, then I'm sure he'll be only too happy to pass that advice on. So not that there is much that Caterham can improve upon really, because every single driver I ever speak to that's raced in these championships is full of praise for the way that the championships are run, for the friendly nature in which they're run as well. You know, this is a highly competitive series of championships, but there's a real camaraderie between the drivers, the teams, and those that run the championship as well.
There really is, and it's the reason why people keep coming back and back, and people tend to come and race for years on end with Caterham Motorsport, because it is such a well-run professional product, which is incredible. One thing we should mention, which I think I overheard, which I think is right, is that the 7 UK cars are going to start separately. They'll start with the lights, then compared to yesterday, the 310Rs will hold for a few seconds, and they'll be started, I believe, by the Union Jack. Either that or they will go all together as one, but we'll find out in a second then. Green flag at the back, and it is going to be a sprint to the Redgate corner between yesterday's race winner Stephen Nuttall and Henry Heaton, one of the championship favourites. Let's see who comes out on top in the 7 UK and 7 310R championships. The red lights go out and away we go. They are holding the 310R, so they'll go on the Union Jack. But the sprint down towards Redgate, see Stephen Nuttall already get himself into the lead. It's already 3-4 abreast between the 7 UK cars down towards the first corner. 310Rs get going with a good start from Andy Lees from the front row of the grid ahead of yesterday's winner Pete Walters. But it is Nuttall who leads the way. It's William Smith who elbows his way to second place. Heaton's up to third as we look at the 310Rs, and it is Andy Lees in the golf coloured car who leads them into turn one, and it's side by side for second between Pete Walters and James Wingfield. The Wingfield in the red and yellow car on the outside line. It looks like he might have picked up a spot into the old hairpin at racing speeds. It's so nice to have them in dry conditions this today, yes, compared to the awful wet weather we had yesterday. It means they can go at full pace. We can get some proper Caterham racing, and it'll be just like it was hopefully in the Rosebrook race we had just now. For second place goes up the inside William Smith, the former champion from years past. I think in 2016, and I think it was in Track Sport or Super Sport a few years ago. And there's another return. Chris Hutchinson, there's contact. That was both William Smith and Henry Heaton off into the barriers. I think there must have been interlocking tyres, but that's possible. Could have been a contenders for the victory, maybe even the podium. Out on lap one already, I'm afraid, Andy, and that didn't look pretty.
Yeah, so easy to tangle wheels in these things, isn't it? Especially when you're on slightly cold tyres, running that close together. All it takes is for one car to get a bit sideways, probably the car on the inside in that case, and you just lock together and head for the scenery. That's almost certainly going to require a second appearance of the day for the RunYourFleet.com safety car, but it's not quite going to make it out before the start of lap number 2. Lap 1 then in the books. It's Nuttall with the lead. Greg Monks is second. James Murphy third. He's having a good run, isn't he, here in what is his first weekend racing in the 7 UK Championship. But Gordon Sawyer there dived up the inside of him and took that third place away as they went through Redgate. In the 310Rs, looks like that's Andy Lees leading, yes it is, with Wingfield second, and third position for the 88 of Walters. We've got a car into the pit lane, and that is the very badly crumpled William Smith's number 27, the front bodywork dislodged. There is no sign, though, Scott, of Henry Heaton, so I think we've got one car stranded at the top of the track. And what we saw yesterday, typically, was that they're happy to use the live snatch if they can. If there is just one car off the road, it's if there's more than one up there that they may have to neutralise the race.
I think possibly Henry Heaton did come through, because looking at the timings, he came through 13th. So
yeah, well spotted.
Looks like it was William Smith that had the issue, and he's managed to carry on. So if there was any contact, it was obviously didn't see them hit the barriers, because that's obviously quite far into the infield. So looks like if there was contact, they both managed to regain. So there, in fact, there's Henry Heaton there in the turquoise car, just the back of the 7 UK pack. So whatever contact it was heavy enough to cause the damage to the front end of William Smith's car, but not enough to damage Heaton. So hopefully he can carry on relatively unscathed. Lead is out of the Robert chicane for the second time, and also someone's having a great race in his first weekend behind James Murphy is Chris Hutchinson in the mix, or Cheesy as he's known. He usually has a big grin on his face in the paddock, and usually his car is liveried like a Swiss cheese, but he's managed to keep it in tribute to a late Caterham racer who sadly passed away, and that was his car, and in tribute for that he decided to keep the livery the same. For the 310Rs, changed to a lead. It's now Pete Walters, who won yesterday, back to the front ahead of Andy Lees, and James Wingfield is also in the mix as well, looking for second place on the back of the golf coloured car. Fourth place in the 310Rs is currently sat for Douglas Christie. Then it's Chris Moore in fifth position. Lars Hoffman's sixth. The Ben Lopez after having a better day for seventh. Andy Lees holds on to the lead, but it's still second place for Wingfield now as he goes round the outside of Pete Walters into Redgate, and through he goes. So that wasn't an easy move, but then again we've seen plenty of outside moves this weekend, and that was just one of many.
Yeah, exactly, and that was another example there of how leading onto the pit straight doesn't necessarily mean you'll be leading at the other end of it because of the power of the slipstream. In the 310Rs, I think that will be even more prominent than it is in the slightly more powerful 7 UK cars at the front of the field. Down through the old hairpin there goes the number 49, that was it, of Henry Williams, the head of his particular group. But the battle for the 310R lead is up at McLean's corner, and these three just starting to establish, in Caterham terms at least, a bit of a lead now over Doug Christie and Lars Hoffman, who are scrapping away there there for 4th and 5th place. Up through Coppice Corner they go. If they keep on holding each other up, then they are in danger of losing touch a little bit with the class leaders. Down the exhibition straight they go. Grand Macdonald sets the fastest lap. Of course, he's running in the 7 UK part of the race, running in 6th position to be precise. Down into the chicane, we're going to get another 310R lead change. No, James Wingfield hangs on for the time being, but we have, Scott, had a change for the lead in the 7 UKs.
Yeah, Gordon Sawyer up to the mix. Gordon Sawyer, who was a champion in 310Rs last year, so, no, 2 years ago, moved up to the 7 UKs last year, hasn't yet won a race in the 7 UKs, but came close a couple of times and was able to do one of the few people that actually made a challenge to John Byrne at one point when John Byrne wasn't dominating the championship. But now he's towards the front, Nuttall into 2nd place, and Greg Monks, who was last year's 310R champion, up into 3rd, but not for much longer, as here comes a great slipstream from James Murphy. And also, look at Grand Macdonald and Chris Hutchinson. This is their first weekend of the championship too. The racing night, they've been in this level of racing for years, and it's the first time Chris Hutchinson has actually raced since 2018 when he won the championship. He's been away for 2 years, racing like he's never even took a break, which is fantastic. Back to the lead, into the chicane goes Stephen Nuttall, under brakes into the right-hander at the Robert chicane. Through he goes, little wiggle as he gets back on the pound, but he's managed to get the momentum enough to get himself back to the lead. But this fight for 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th is pretty intense. The top 2 start to break away, Andy.
Yeah, and again, they've got to be mindful, this second group, haven't they, that if they keep running side by side, the top 2 could make a break. It's hard to break away in Caterham racing, but once you do build up a gap of more than about a second and a half or so, once you've broken the toe, as the drivers refer to it as, then it can be difficult for the next pack to get back to you without working together. And as we're seeing here, they don't really like doing that. So Stephen Nuttall and Gordon Sawyer trying to make the break. It's Monks in 3rd position. They drop down through the bottom of the hill in the 310Rs. They're just coming past our window. It's now Andy Lease back in front, I can tell you, but that's almost academic because the lead's going to change almost every lap throughout this 20-minute race. By the end of the race, we might have a better idea of who the clear favourites are in each class. Up through the top of the circuit they go, and it's that second group getting a bit closer to the top 2. They're certainly not dropping away anymore, are they?
No, they're starting to kind of inadvertently work together. It seems to be almost like a slight temporary truce, saying, look, if we keep on battling, these 2 are going to get away, so they're trying to do their best. Although I don't think Grand Macdonald's got the issue. He wants to go and race and go for it. He's really big squeeze to the inside line by Greg Monks, who showed him the edge of the track and said, you might be the CEO, but you ain't getting past me that easy. Into the chicane, and it's still Nuttall in front as he reclaims the lead from Gordon Sawyer. Monks into 3rd with a little sideways moment. There's Chris Hutchinson in 6th position ahead of Chris Aubrey, so it's now a 7-car group for the lead. Make it possibly 8th, because also in the mix there is Neil Frazier. Henry Heaton sets the fast lap of the race, and there he is in the back of the shot, as now the inside for 3rd place goes Grand Macdonald, but around the outside of the pair of them goes James Murphy. Superman, as he's known by the nickname, tries to go around the outside, it almost makes it stick. Macdonald gets his elbows out and tries to hold on. Now it's side by side between Murphy and Monks, who went for toe-to-toe for the 310R title last year, now continuing that battle in the 7 UK ranks. They swing through the old hairpin, and now the tail that group, you can see, Andy, both Chris Aubrey and Neil Fraser have joined in, and I'm pretty confident with the pace he's setting, given the fact that he just had the fast lap of the race. Henry Heaton, despite that first lap contact, may not be that far away, and he's got time to get towards the front here. 13 minutes to go. It's not impossible. A
slow car, though, which I think is one of the 310Rs, maybe with dramas. That possibly is going to be a car heading for the pit lane. Just maybe jumped for a second, though, because I wondered if it was one of the 7 UK leaders, but it wasn't. Up through the top of the hill, we'll see who that is now. It's
number
the
4.
That is Luke Fryer, who was at the back of the 310R grid anyway. And Luke isn't a name that I'm recognised from last year, Scott. Is he making a debut in Caterham racing this year?
I believe he is. He's one of a couple. The other one I think is making debuts, Martin Gleek as well, who's in the ex-Christian Zeruta car, which I call the Braun GP Special, because it's very like St Jensen Button's title-winning car from 2009. So, and Christian Zeruta, when he was driving that car, certainly quite prominent. Henry Heaton is getting on with this now, and he must be absolutely fired up after the contact, because he just set the fastest lap of the race again for the 2nd consecutive lap. So he's certainly pushing on to try and make an impact as best he can to close up to the front runners. Here's the 310R front runners with Andy Lees back into the lead. It's now Pete Walsh in 2nd place, Wingfield 3rd, and also quietly making his way up to the order now, despite a bit of a sluggish start, is Lars Hoffman, last year's 270R champion and the Road Sport champion the year before that. So certainly trying to pick up as many places as he can in car 70 as they head back down towards the chicane at the end of lap number 6. Through the right, through the left, and it still leads in the golf coloured car, followed by Walters, then Wingfield, Hoffman up into 5th place in that group now has gone. At the moment, Ben Lopez absent, but he's now been chased by both the 67 Doug Christie and also Harry Landy in the bright green car. They're going to go 3 abreast for 5th place in the 310R. There might have been a bit of bodywork that went flying off to driver's left, but so they will keep it pretty clean. Walters over the curb, but he's now under threat from Wingfield, so literally no let-up at all in these two championships, which is probably what we expected from Caterham Racing on this dry circuit and with the better conditions.
Jeff Price down the pit lane, by the way, so Jeff Price looks like he might be a retirement in the 38 car, as past us go the 7 UK cars then towards Redgate Corner. Nuttall, Sawyer, McDonald, Monks, Hutchinson was the order, with Henry Heaton now well and truly a part of that battle in 8th position. We're following on the screen though the 310Rs, and it is by the looks of it Walters in front at this point of the lap, although it was Andy Leese at the start of the lap who had the 310R class lead. He's the Gulf livery car. There go the 7 UKs, top two making a break.
And look at Henry Heaton, he's in the chrome turquoise car, lock up as he throws it into the old hairpin, but he is not hanging around. He started the lap in 8th position, he's already passed Chris Aubrey and then Chris Hutchinson, he's up to 6th already. Henry Heaton is a man on a mission right now. He's absolutely fired up after the contact he had with William Smith. It unfortunately means that Smith is out of the race to his detriment, but he's going for it. He's on the back of Greg Monks, forcing him wide on the exit, looking for the inside line, but Monks shuts the door. But Heaton, if he's determined enough, will try and find the room on the exit if he can from Coppice Corner. 310Rs have gone past the pit straight to us here, with Lee still leading, but it's Pete Walters under massive pressure from the cars behind him. Now we see Henry Heaton making a move for the top 5. I think we would have said that at the beginning of that race after that contact. That was incredible, but still, Nuttall from Sawyer, from Murphy, from Grand Macdonald having a great first weekend in the dry conditions now in his number 19. And then watch for Henry Heaton, and given the fact he's really on fast at that pace, he did a 1 minute 13.827. He's really motoring.
Greg Monks there, I don't know whether he didn't realise Chris Aubrey was alongside him, but Chris Aubrey in the green car there, it's Hutchinson, sorry,
yeah.
It's 78, excuse me, was trying to get alongside Greg Monks, and Greg almost put him in the pit wall, which doesn't tend to go down very well. Look at the way James Murphy has suddenly latched onto the tail of the top 2 as well, so the picture of the race changing now as we move into the second half, 9.5 minutes still to go. It is still Stephen Nuttall that lead from Gordon Sawyer and James Murphy in the 7 UKs, but Henry Heaton is coming in 5th position. And the thing is here for Heaton, you know, it's a shame in a way we don't have John Byrne racing with us this year in 7 UK, but on the flip side, it has kind of reinvigorated the championship, because whenever John Byrne's on the grid, you know he's probably going to win, often by quite a sizable margin. And Henry Heaton will know now, and so will Stephen Nuttall in fairness, that this is their year to go and win the championship. Now that John Byrne isn't here, the path is clear for one of those two to go and win. And that, I think, is why we're seeing such a determined drive here from Heaton to reclaim those lost points. There was reclamation of the race lead. There's contact at Redgate Corner. Andy Lees and James Wingfield are off into the gravel trap. They were going into the corner side by side. Andy Lees is buried. I think Wingfield might have carried on, but that is one car off in the gravel. Yeah, Wingfield has continued. Just caught a glimpse of him at the back of the shot. And as the next pack go through into a yellow flag zone, things started to get a little bit messy.
They did. That's unfortunate. Andy Lees did the cardinal sin of flooring the throttle. He's in the gravel. He's unfortunately beached himself in there, and he won't be able to get out until that's him out of the race, sadly. So whether that requires a safety car or not, we'll have to wait and see. There might be possible. He might be deep enough to require a live snatch and to cover it with waved yellows. But this is the challenge now for the 7 UK cars. They've really got to try and work their way through the lap traffic here towards the back of the field, and so picking their way through. Even though the 7 310R cars at their fastest aren't that much slower, they've got about a 20 horsepower, 30 horsepower deficit. But when they're driven, because they're a little bit, because they're quite rapid in themselves, there's not actually that much pace difference too much when you look at lap times in some cases. Although this year the 7 UK cars are much quicker with uprated dedicated airborne slicks. They've got uprated suspension, a higher rev limit on the engine, which means they are much faster. And I say that even the fastest of the 310R cars are doing 1 minute 19s, 118s, whereas the fastest 7 UK cars are doing 1 minute 13s. Trying to make the move for the lead there was James Murphy. He slotted into 2nd place ahead of Gordon Sawyer, and now Nuttall's starting to feel the pressure. And again, you have to remind, this is James Murphy's first weekend in the 310 in the 7 UKs after graduating from 310Rs. As there's a yellow light on the top of the gantry, which might suspect that either it's just yellow flags down at turn 1. I thought we were about to see the safety car make an appearance, but not so. Live snatch is in place to get Andy Lees out of the gravel, which means there's no passing to Redgate, but you can do as soon as you get there. So drivers will want to set themselves up for a move by trying keeping close to Redgate, and then try and nail them as they come through the Craner curves, maybe for a move into the old hairpin. And that's what James Murphy had to do as he stares at the back of Stephen Nuttall's roll cage.
It would be quite something, wouldn't it, if James Murphy could win on his debut weekend here at 7 UK. That is probably probably the most difficult step between rungs of the Caterham ladder, I'd say, to go between the 310Rs up to the 7 UKs. And James Murphy is doing a terrific job. They got the inside there of the erstwhile 310 leader, James Wingfield, who, of course, is potentially got a bit of damage as a result of that contact he had with Andy Lees. In third place is Gordon Sawyer. And then look who's almost with them. Henry Heaton in fourth position. Well, he might be about to spoil the party for these three because he's clearly quicker than them. The way that he's not only clawed his way through the field, but then bridged that little bit of a gap there was between this pack and the next pack. And he's right there with them now in fourth position. So this is the battle for the overall race lead and the 7 UK lead. And they're about to catch the lead pack in the 310Rs to put a lap on them. Now, yes, they'll be shown the blue flags for the 310Rs, but look at this. You've got a 2, 4, 6, 8 car battle here at the front of the field. One of these cars is going to miss those blue flags, surely, and this could have real ramifications on the battle for the 7 UK lead.
It really could, and we had some incidents last year, if you remember. Of course, we had an incident with Stephen Nuttall when he got caught up with a 310R car in the pit straight, and that ruined one of his races. So it can happen, and I'm pretty certain that Stephen Nuttall now has got awful flashbacks thinking, oh no, not again, not back markers at Donington Park. But he'll certainly want to try and pick his way as he can, but James Murphy might get there first as he looks up the inside through Starkeys, now towards Schwanzker. They're coming up to the pack. This is effectively, this is a lead battle within a lead battle, because you've got the 7 UK trying to pick their way through. This is incredibly congested, and James Murphy, I think, has he made it through? I think he has got past Stephen Nuttall, hasn't he? Yes, he has. So he picked his way through, all the way through the traffic. Some smart driving there. Also look at Grand Macdonald in the grey and green car, number 19. He's managed to make his way to the back of the lead group now in the 7 UK, so it's now 5 for the lead, and somehow they're picking their way through the 310Rs incredibly carefully. For the 310Rs, to remind you, at the moment it's Hoffman who leads the way, as Murphy, so there's a piece of bodywork flying off of somebody's rear wing, I think, through all of that, and that's incredible. All those cars in one pack in 2 different classes, only one piece of bodywork with flying. That's a miracle.
Yes, well, James Murphy read that situation perfectly. Not only did he take the lead from Nuttall, as you spotted, but he's actually gapped Stephen Nuttall now as well. The lead gap is, I think, the biggest it's ever been, just under a second now between Murphy, the black and orange car, and then the black number 46 in second place. Then Gordon Sawyer, the yellow car, is third, and he's got the turquoise machine of Henry Heaton right on his tail. So those two haven't yet got through to the very front of the 310R field. That group still being led by Lars Hoffman, with Walters second, and Ben Lopez-Appleton up into third position. He's also having a good race here. Ben Lopez-Appleton on for a podium, maybe, in the second race of the weekend. Back down through the old hairpin they go. Of course, the rest of the 7 UK field now also trying to negotiate this group. It's not just the leaders that they have to be mindful of, but there's a whole group of a dozen or so 7 UK cars that at some point will want to try and find their way through. Running out of time in this one now, though, aren't we, Scott? We're into the final quarter, just over 4 minutes still to go. And, well, I wouldn't write any of those top 4 out just yet, but has James Murphy done enough here, do you think, to make the crucial break?
It's never certain in the Caterham race, because you always know that if Stephen Nuttall can try and find a bit of pace in clear air, he may well get onto the back of them pretty quickly. We're just seeing a nice scrap here as Ben Lopez-Appleton. It's coming under threat from Harry Landy. Harry Cook's also in the mix as well. This is a scrap over the final podium place. It's 4 of them going for the podium as they come into the final chicane. I saw in the foreground also Henry Heaton going for what was, I think, is 3rd place on Gordon Sawyer. We'll catch up on the cameras in a second if you watch the leading group for 2nd, 3rd and 4th going at it for the 310Rs. Also when you see Chris Hutchinson is trying to make his way through. Just in the foreground at the bottom of the shot, I think, is that Heaton through? No, not quite. He's just behind Gordon Sawyer at the moment with 3.5 minutes to go. They're all piling into the red gate to try and be 3rd, and I think it's going to be Harry Cook that gets in front. Ben Lopez-Appleton with a big tack slapper, and I think one of the drivers almost got caught up. That was Chris Hutchinson. They must have given him a fright, but he managed to pick his way through, and Lopez-Appleton now is side by side with Neil Fraser in his 310R. Douglas Christie's also got past him as well. So in the space of 1 move, Lopez has gone from 3rd to 6th position after losing 3 spots in a few corners.
It's a job to keep track of exactly what's going on in that group, because as you made the point, there are 2 different races going on in one bit of real estate essentially, but so far I have to say brilliant driving standards from both classes. No real dramas, the odd bit of wheel banging maybe as the quicker cars have come through, and now the 310Rs are kind of left to have their own battle. Big moment there, running a bit wide through the dirt for Ben Lopez-Appleton, who started this race, remember, where was he, 10th on the grid in the 310R, so for him to be up there now in the podium fight is particularly impressive. As that group goes down the exhibition straight though, the race leaders overall are just passing our window, and I think they're getting closer there. I think that Stephen Nuttall is gaining, and yes, on that lap he was 6/10 quicker than the race leader. We've also got side by side, I can see, between Heaton and Sawyer. There, you're seeing it on the screen now. I think maybe Sawyer was delayed by a back marker there, and so the inside goes Henry Heaton, and closing in behind them as well. There's almost contact. There is a bit of contact there. That was Grand Macdonald getting it to the back, I think, of Gordon Sawyer.
That was close, and he did so well to hold that. Incredible he held for Grand Macdonald. He was really challenging on the back of those top top 3. But at the battle for third place, Henry Heaton has got third, but Sawyer's sending back up the inside now. I'm going to have to go in a minute to try and get the podium interviews. I don't want to tear away from the screen. It's fantastic racing, but now we've just got away. We'll have to see if we can keep track of them as they run towards it. Oh, they're 3 abreast of the run towards McLean's. I know we can see the battles in the 3 tails, but here they come. And McDonald's into third place.
Wow.
He's done it. The Caterham CEO is into P3. And now into P4 is Gordon Sawyer. 5th is now Henry Heaton. This is going to be a pretty intense last couple of laps as they come up through the right-hander up at McLean's corner. But Grand Macdonald, showing every opportunist that he is, ran that. It must have been a move up at the old hairpin with those 2 on the exit. Timed it beautifully. He might lose out on it now on the run down towards Robert Chicane. But Grand Macdonald proving not just the CEO in the race car, he's got pace in this machine.
Yeah, absolutely. Gordon Sawyer then back into third place, Heaton back to 4th. So that third place from McDonald was short-lived. On to the penultimate lap of the race we go. We've just got time for 2 more laps. And there you can see just how close it is for the race lead. James Murphy has been reeled in now by Stephen Nuttall. The gap was about 9 tenths, then it was 6 tenths. Now it's 3 tenths. Number 32 that is, I think, isn't it, in the gravel?
No, that's 92, Chris.
Oh, sorry,
92.
92.
I think he might have possibly some damage on the right front. It looked like the wheel was locking, I think, so there was suspension damage, but it's now together for the lead then, the 7 UK. So that advantage you were talking about with James Murphy is completely evaporated thanks to Stephen Nuttall. As for third place, Sawyer is back up into P3, Heaton back to P4, and it's then McDonald back to P5. So exactly where they started, but I can guarantee is now I have to dash off to cover Chapter if it comes up in these 3 IMBO championships. Who knows what the order's going to be, but I know it's going to be quite an intense finish. So over to you, Andy.
Yeah, this should be fun then. A lap and a half to go. James Murphy leads in the Caterham 7 UK portion of the race. Yellow flags at Coppice. That is where the car is off in the gravel trap, so no overtaking at that part of the track. It's not usually a great overtaking opportunity, but in Caterham racing, you can sort of pass wherever the mood takes you. Certainly into the chicane you can overtake, and Stephen Nuttall is trying to do that. He goes to the outside of James Murphy. He's gone through. Murphy locks up, almost gets into the back of him, but Nuttall has gone through. They just avoid making contact, and Stephen Nuttall has taken the lead. Now, is that too early, though? 1 more lap to go, and Murphy is already coming back at him. You don't necessarily want to lead the race going on to the final lap because of the slipstream effect. Nuttall, though, is trying his best to hang on to it. Murphy can't get him into Redgate corner. Carries a bit more speed off the turn. Can he duck up the inside through Hollywood? No, he goes to the outside instead, and they'll be side by side as they drop down the hill for the final time. Nuttall on the left, James Murphy on the right, and Murphy's gone back through. I don't think Nuttall fought that too hard, though. I think Stephen knows that he can make that move down the back straight again and maybe take the lead right into the last corner. Henry Heaton, meanwhile, is up into 3rd position now. Gordon Sawyer 4th, and Graham Macdonald 5th. But those 3 once again are tied together by a very short piece of string. And in the 310Rs, it is Lars Hoffman that leads from Pete Walters and Ben Lopez Appleton, and those top 2, in fact, Walters and Appleton, have made a bit of a break now from the rest of the pack. Through Coppice for the final time go the overall top 2. This is go time now. Can Stephen Nuttall get the run down the exhibition straight and do what he did a lap ago? They're heading into the final couple of corners now. James Murphy has the advantage. Nuttall is looking to the inside. I'm not sure he's close enough. There's yellow flags at the chicane. There's a car in the gravel, and that has scuppered Stephen Nuttall's opportunity. He couldn't get the overtake done because there's a car in the gravel exiting the chicane, and so James Murphy is going to hang on to win his first ever Caterham 7 UK Championship race in only his 2nd attempt. Brilliant race that was. Stephen Nuttall in the end just over a quarter of a second shy in 2nd. Now 3rd is Sawyer, 4th Macdonald, and Heaton, after a slow final lap there, dropped to almost a 2.5 behind them in 5th. So when we saw them halfway round the lap, Henry Heaton was in 3rd place. He ends it 5th and some way adrift. Now in the 310Rs, Lars Alexander Hoffman had Pete Walters for company. They're coming out of the chicane now. They're in the group just behind this trio, I think. And no, they are those 3, excuse me. They got across the line, and it is going to be Hoffman just by a 1/10 of a second from Walters in 2nd position. And Pete Walters it was that started on pole, remember, so loses 1 position over the course of the race, but doesn't really tell the full story. Ben Lopez Appleton was 5.5 seconds adrift in the end. He clearly had some issues there towards the end. Now, who did we lose to the gravel trap? I think it was number 21, potentially, which would be Harry Landy. And I think his car is green. It's a green car I can see out of the window that's beached itself in the gravel at the final chicane. I think that is Harry Landy. He certainly didn't finish the race on track, so I think he was unfortunately the reason for that yellow flag, and that had such significant ramifications there, because I think that Stephen Nuttall in his mind had judged that so that he could make the final decisive move for the win going into the final chicane. He was going to get that slipstream down the exhibition straight. He was going to attack into the chicane as he had done a lap earlier and leave James Murphy with no time then to retaliate between there and the line. But because there were yellow flags at the chicane. He wasn't allowed to overtake, and so James Murphy was able to hang on to take the race victory. Fantastic racing though, thoroughly enjoyed that. Let's confirm the result for you then. In the 7 UKs, it was James Murphy that took the victory from Stephen Nuttall second. Gordon Sawyer came out on top of that epic three-way fight for third, ahead of Grand Macdonald and Henry Heaton. Greg Monks was sixth, Chris Hutchinson seventh, Neil Fraser eighth, Rob Watts was ninth, and Tom Eden rounded out the top 10. Henry Heaton there, as you can see, took the fastest lap on his recovery after that lap one off. Chris Aubrey was next ahead of Johnny Jarrett and David Yates, and then Lars Alexander Hoffman wins in the 310R category just by 1/10 of a second from Pete Walters in second. Ben Lopez Appleton was third ahead of Andrew Murgatroyd and Harry Cook, and then it was James Wingfield after his off, Doug Christie. Giuseppe Fillet was 21st overall, Gary Curtis 22nd, Henry Williams, Chris Welch, Martin Gleich and Luke Fryer were the last of the finishers. Harry Landy was the driver, I think, that was off at the final chicane. We also lost Moore. Andy Leese, of course, was off at Redgate Corner, and William Smith, also a retirement, as was the 38 car of Jeff Price. And breathe. 2 races in, 2 absolute barnstormers, 3 technically, because we had really close finishes in both the 7 UK and 310R elements of that race. We move now from sports cars to single-seaters and the Avon Tyres National Formula Ford Championship. Slightly smaller grid for Formula Fords, but the racing should be just as close. Plenty of drivers to chat to, though, after our second race of the day. And Scott, I believe, has made his way down to Parc Fermé to have a chat with our podium finishers.
Is he going to do it? Yeah. Wow, fantastic racing with the 7 UKs and 310Rs. You can probably see over there an emphatic race winner, James Murphy. Fantastic job from him. And incredible battling. He was having a fantastic scrap with Gordon Sawyer and Stephen Nuttall. And congratulations to the 310R guys as well. Lars Hoffman with his first win of the season ahead of Pete Walters and Ben Lopez Appleton. Let's see if we can have a quick chat with our top 3 when they're out of the car. But yeah, incredible stuff. That's the fastest Caterhams you'll see all weekend. An incredible racing for all of them. And that was really hard fought. James did a fantastic job. So what we're going to do is actually we can go in and have a chat to our top 3 in both championships. I know that James Murphy is going to be absolutely buzzing after that. So we'll actually have a wander and have a chat. James, well, man, I call you Superman, and that was certainly a Superman-esque performance. You got to be made up with that first weekend in 7 UKs, and you got yourself a bit of a tricky day yesterday with the weather, but how does that feel, first win?
I'm almost lost for words, Scott. It feels incredible. A lot went for me in that race. I hope Will and Henry are all right with the accident at the start. That markers fell for me. I had to be a bit brave. I used them to my advantage, and the yellow flag at the end. I'll be honest, I think 7 or 8 times out of 10, Steve's got me there, but today, the sun's shining and the heavens are smiling on me.
You've always been prominent in Caterhams, whatever level, but this must give you a massive amount of confidence and faith that not only are you quick in one of these up the top level cars, but you could realistically start thinking about making a proper challenge for the championship.
These things are incredible. They're completely different. It's like going to a different class of motorsport altogether. They're just stunning spec, and it's so enjoyable to drive. And well, I hope you tell me, but that looked like great racing out there from my seat anyway. And yeah, a lot of confidence, sure, but these guys are so quick.
Yeah, fantastic racing in the dry. Knock Hill next, short, fast circuit with these cars. That should be exciting.
It should be a roller coaster. I mean, it was last time I was there was in road sport, and that felt. I mean, this is going to be insane, absolutely insane. Big shout out to DPR Motorsport, who look at us, top 3 here. Fabulous job from the guys all the way through the winter and all the way through the weekend. So huge thanks to them. And yeah, it's lovely to be flanked by Steve and Gordon, who, frankly, this I look up to.
Mate, well, you had an absolutely fantastic day, so go and enjoy it, and we'll see you at Knock Hill. Well done.
Thanks, mate. Good to see you, Scott. Thanks.
Good stuff. We should have some time to have a chat to our top 3 in both. We'll have a chat to Stephen in second place quickly. Stephen, you pressed hard and you had times to be in the lead, but just missed out. But you put in a heck of a drive all weekend with winning yesterday and second today. all in all, got to be pleased.
Yeah, I'll grow up and be pleased with those results because they're obviously very, very good. But today I felt like I had the pace, and James did a cracking job to come back from where he was. And the last lap, I let him through because down the back straight you're always going to get it. And unfortunately, there was a yellow flag on the last corner, so I couldn't make the overtaking move. So I effectively gave away a win today, but not taking anything away from James because he did a brilliant job and gapped me, towards the end of the race. So it was tough work clawing it back. But yeah, I'll have a cup of coffee, realise they're a good pair of results, and be pleased about it in due course.
We'll see you not kill, but well done for this weekend. We'll see you next time.
Yeah. Cheers, thank you.
And we'll quickly move on because we're going to do podiums, of course, very shortly for them. We'll have a chat with Gordon Sawyer in third for a second. Gordon, well, I think you were up and down with picking that battle for third place at the end, but you managed to get them. But both Henry and Graham made that very hard for you at the end.
Yeah, pretty much same as yesterday's race. It seems extremely hard work just to come third. I think the guys in front had an easier run. I think I had the race for that.
Welcome back to racing this afternoon on day 2 of the season opening weekend for the British Racing Sports Car Club and Caterham Motorsport. More great action coming up. We've got the last Caterham race coming up very shortly. We can see them behind me on the grid. We're going to have a chat to a few of the drivers. We've also got the first races for the Nankang Tyre City Car Cup. More racing from National Formula Fords, Modified Fords, and with 2 races from Aston Martin Owners Club. But as you can see behind me, the grid is being formed for the 7 UK and 310R cars. We've got about a couple of minutes, so we'll be able to go a couple of quick interviews with some of the drivers. So James Murphy, Stephen Nuttall on the front row of the grid, first and second. Gordon Sawyer third. And I think we'll have a very quick chat if we can to the boss himself very quickly, Grand Macdonald very quickly. Graham, very quickly. Well, you were impressive in race 2. You almost picked up a podium for that. That was superb.
Yeah, it went well for me in race 2. After a bad race 1 where I stalled, then started in 9th to get up to 4th place. I was well happy. Disappointed I missed the podium, but here we are, starting at front 2 rows of the grid. Who knows what might happen?
And you must be delighted. The new spec Caterham seems to be going down well, the 7 UK car, and you got more on the way for your home race at Knockhill onwards. So, yeah, things are looking on the up for the top line, isn't it?
Certainly. Thank you, Scott. Yeah, look forward to it.
Good stuff. Well, best of luck. Hopefully I'll talk to you afterwards and see if you can get a podium.
Thank you. I hope so very much.
Good stuff.
Cheers.
Well done. Right, well, they're just clearing the grid now, so we're going to head to Andy to kick us through all the action.
This BRSCC Caterham race weekend, and we're into our afternoon programme now. 7 races coming your way over the course of the next few hours. And, well, if you want variety, you have come to the right place. We've got Caterhams on the grid now, ready for their first race. Then we move into the Aston Martin Owners Club part of the day, where they have 2 of their series racing with us here. First of all, they have the Innes Island and Jack Fairman Cup grids, which are a real eclectic mix of sort of 1960s saloon and GT cars. Then, later on in the day, we will have the Aston Martin Owners Club GT, GT4 and Intermark series, which is where we find things like Ferrari Challenge cars. We've got a couple of GT4 cars. The Porsche GT3 Cup car is also represented on there, so some slightly more modern GT machinery. And then interspersed amongst all of that, we have the final race of the weekend for the Avon Tyres National Formula Ford Championship. They produced an absolute thriller earlier on this afternoon with their second race of the weekend. The second race will also take place for the Ford Modified series that were out just before lunchtime. So if you're a fan of the Blue Oval, then we've got a brilliant grid of 30-odd modified Fords heading out for their second 15-minute race later on this afternoon. We also have the very exciting debut of the BRSCC Nankang Tyre City Car Cup, which is an enormous grid of 37 or 38 cars, I think, many of whom are taking part in their first ever motor race. Right, not in their first ever motor race, though, are the drivers on the grid right now, and in fact on the track right now, on their green flag lap. This is the third race of the weekend for the Caterham 7 UK Championship and the Caterham 7 310R Championship. They've had 2 races already this weekend, one earlier on this morning, one yesterday afternoon. The one yesterday was in the wet, won by Stephen Nuttall in the 7 UK class, and in the 310Rs it was Pete Walters that took the victory. In race number 2, James Murphy was the winner in the 7 UKs, and Lars Alexander Hoffman won in the 310Rs in what was a typical Caterham slipstreaming race. Now into the third race of the weekend then, let's run you through the grid very quickly. It will be James Murphy on pole because he won the earlier race with Stephen Nuttall alongside. Gordon Sawyer and Grand Macdonald make up row 2 ahead of Henry Heaton and Greg Monks. Then it's Chris Hutchinson and Neil Fraser on the third row of the grid together, with Rob Watts and Tom Eden on row 4. Chris Aubrey and Johnny Jarrett are on row 5. row 6, excuse me, ahead of David Yates and William Smith. That's the back of the Caterham 7 UK grid. Then we move into the Caterham 7 310Rs, and that is headed by the race 2 winner, Lars Alexander Hoffman, with Pete Walters alongside. Ben Lopez Appleton was third in the earlier race, so he's third on the grid for this one, with Andrew Murgatroyd alongside him. Harry Cook and James Wingfield are on row 3. Wingfield was in the lead battle in race 2 before he ended up getting elbowed out into the gravel partway through, so he's one to watch for sure. Doug Christie and Giuseppe Fillet are on the 4th row of the 310R grid, ahead of Gary Curtis and Henry Williams. Chris Welch and Martin Gleich are next, ahead of Luke Fryer and Harry Landy. Then it's Chris Moore, Andy Leese, another one to watch. Again, he was in the lead pack before he ended up off at Redgate, and Jeff Price rounds out the field. So a busy grid with 2 different championships taking place at one time, essentially, with the quicker 7 UK cars that are at the very top of the motorsport, Caterham Motorsport racing ladder, get my teeth in, with the 310Rs the sort of next step down. So these are the 2 fastest categories of Caterham racing here this weekend, and they both produced absolute barnstormers earlier on. That second race of the weekend, Scott Woodwiss, was an absolute thriller.
Really was, and I had a very quick chat just on a pre-recorded interview we just did on the grid with Grand Macdonald, and he's really delighted with 4th place and hoping he's in a position now to possibly get himself onto the podium, which will be certainly something he'll be hoping for, because he has been in positions before when he's been in good contention for podiums, race wins, and either the race hasn't just gone his way or things have gone against him. So fingers crossed it works in his favour, and the boss can pick up some silverware to take back to the factory.
Yes, absolutely, and we will wait and see how he gets on. Maybe he can get that podium in this race. We shall wait and see. Lines up 4th on the grid in that sort of light green car there on the outside of row number 2. On the pole position is James Murphy, though, the number 3 machine, the orange, the black car with sort of orange highlights and the orange roll hoop, and alongside him Stephen Nuttall. They really did go wheel to wheel in that previous race. We're hoping for more of the same now, as round number 3 of the Caterham 7 UK Championship and the Caterham 7 310R Championship is about to get underway. The green flag has been waved at the back, the red lights are on. Pole position for James Murphy. Can he convert that into the lead at turn 1? The Caterham 7 UK Championship part of the race gets underway, and it's not a good start by James Murphy. It's Nuttall that will have the lead, and Murphy under pressure for second place there from the yellow and black car of Gordon Sawyer, who sweeps around the outside of him. In the 310R portion of the race, though, there was a bit of a mix-up there as Ben Lopez Appleton massively jumped the start, I think, didn't he, from the second row of the grid. He stopped and then lost places in the end, but I'm pretty sure he'll still end up with a penalty there, so lots to talk about already at the start of this race. There go the 310Rs through the corner, through Redgate corner, that is, the first turn, and on their way down through the Crane Curves. But yeah, dramatic start there. Stephen Nuttall getting the jump in the Caterham 7 UK part of the race. Gordon Sawyer is second, James Murphy there in third, and Henry Heaton, who had a lap 1 collision at this corner that really wrecked his first race earlier on, is in the lead pack again here in 4th.
Well, this will certainly benefit him. He will want to stay there, of course, for the duration of it, and try and use the fact that he's in that lead group early on to his advantage. They turn their way through Coppice Corner for the first time. You see the 78 there of Chris Hutchinson, one of the returnees to the grid, and his fellow returnees, William Smith, is trying to make up positions after the collision he had with Henry Heaton, put him out of the race, so that's unfortunate. They're already going side by side in the braking duel down towards the Robert chicane, but Nuttall holds on, hits the floppy marker on the inside of the first part, then it goes for a Burton hit by somebody else as it heads off, so you can tell the pace is already pretty much at 100% on the start of this opening lap. And already for 3rd place, here comes Henry Heaton down the pit straight to the outside of James Murphy, also now trying to make the silver dummies Gordon Sawyer. He does make the dive up the inside and almost gets his nose chopped off by Stephen Nuttall as they turn into Redgate Corner for the second time. Nuttall ran a little bit wide, but he holds on. For the 310Rs, it's Lars Hoffman who leads with Pete Walters in second place. Wingford is third. Change on before because Henry Williams has had a fantastic start. He's up to P4, but under threat now from, it looks to be, Harry Cook with Murgatroyd in 6th position, then Christie, Landy, Lopez Appleton, who will surely get a penalty for that jump start, and also Andy Lee's in 10th position from the back towards the back of the 310R contingent. Lots of scrapping going on towards the base of the top 10, and lots of scrapping going on at the front of the 7 UK contingent. Round the outside looks Gordon Sawyer at the right-hander at McLean's towards the top of the circuit. But it certainly looks as though that not just James Murphy, but Henry Heaton, Grand Macdonald and Greg Monks and everyone else behind Andy getting very racy in these first couple of laps, which means we could be in for a cracker for our 3rd race of the weekend.
It always makes me smile, though, because it is a 20-minute race and you're not going to win it in these first 5 minutes, and yet everyone always tries to, don't they? Look at this, we're 3 wide for the lead again into the chicane. Gordon Sawyer, I think, will hang on. James Murphy back into second. Is he around the outside? Yes, gets past Stephen Nuttall and then gets really sideways coming off the corner, and that's the kind of moment that can just hold people up and allow allow the leader to make a bit of a break. Sawyer, the leader, with the fastest lap there. Look, 1:13.9. He has the advantage. James Murphy slipstreams back onto his tail there down the straight in second. Nuttall third, side by side for fourth there. Henry Heaton has got Greg Monks in the 15 going round the outside. Change of lead in the 310Rs as well, by the looks of it, because Lars Hoffman has lost out to Pete Walters as they go through the chicane. And is that James Wingfield in third? It is. So James Wingfield from relatively deep, well, sixth on the grid. He's up into the top three already, and now challenges for second place in class as they head towards Redgate Corner. He's on the inside line, and Lars Hoffman will try and use the momentum of the outside line to stay ahead, and I think succeeds in doing so.
He does, but Lars Hoffman almost got tagged by Wingfield there. It was very close being wheel to wheel. And now we can see that Harry Cook is trying to get his nose stuck in as well. Of course, in a different car to this year, because he sold his car on to Rob Keogh, who took a fourth and a second place in the 270R. So, of course, he's dapped into a brand new machine as Verstappen throws him up the inside. That would have been on Douglas Christie. But, of course, I'm sure he's confident he must have a penalty impending on him for that massively jump start when he misjudged the lights going off, even the flag for him, because the 7 UK cars started from the lights, whereas the Union Jack flag started from 310R cars. So he certainly had to get back into the mix there. Meanwhile, the 7 UK cars head down the pit straight with Nuttall still in the lead. Chris Hutchinson sets the fastest lap of the race, 1:13.783, and it's again 2 and 3 abreast into Redgate Corner once more. But Sawyer now has the lead from Nuttall, and then Heaton running wide. There is Graham. That was Grand Macdonald getting very sideways, and going off in sympathy there was Chris Hutchinson over the AstroTurf. So he just about holds on, but he loses out to William Smith, and now Smith finds himself sandwiched between the two predominantly green cars as they head down the Craner curves and into the old hairpin. See that Neil Fraser's in the mix as well. The next car in that group is Rob Watts from Eden Yates, and then Johnny Jarrett at the back in the black car with the martini stripes down the side. In the 310Rs, it's side by side for lead again as they head into Redgate Corner, and that looks, I think it's possibly, yeah, that's still Pete Walters in front, but Hoffman second, Wingfield third, but definitely up there in fourth place, trying to contend for that position is Harry Cook as well. So action stations everywhere you look, Andy.
Yeah, most definitely. There are the leading quartet then in the 310Rs, and then in fifth position in class is Ben Lopez Appleton. You're right, he almost certainly will get a penalty, but I can, well, not sympathise maybe, but I can understand why he did what he did, because you raise an interesting point. The 310Rs do not go on the lights, they go on a flag, and how many times have we seen drivers misinterpret that? It's not when the flag moves that you can go, it's when the flag drops. It's got to go up before it goes down, and there's always someone that goes when it goes up instead of down, and I think that's probably what happened there. Right, 3, maybe 4 wide for second place here overall, and that's Henry Heaton in the number 10 car, trying to give Gordon Sawyer the squeeze. That's only ever going to end up in wheel banging. Thankfully they get away with it, and still Gordon Sawyer is there on the inside line. Stephen Nuttall's loving seeing this in his mirror, because he can see the gap there building now between Nuttall, the leader, and everybody else trying to be second. Sawyer on the inside of the old hairpin will get it. Henry Heaton third, then it's Greg Monks in fourth, and James Murphy in fifth position. Monks was one that nearly got sideswiped by Grand Macdonald at Redgate a lap or so ago. Stephen Nuttall, though, what do you reckon? Can he make the break? He's getting away, but I'm not quite sure he's broken the toe yet.
He's going to have to if he wants to make it 2 wins from 3 races this weekend. But of course, that will certainly, if he can get a victory, he'll probably walk away with the most points of anyone else. He should have the championship lead, because getting himself 2 wins in second place should put him top of the points. So certainly he'll want that advantage going to Knock Hill in a few weeks' time. But now down the back straight, he's certainly doing the best he can. But of course, it's difficult when you're on your own in a Caterham race. Ideally, ironically, you do want someone with you, so you can either try and work together as they all shuffle themselves through. Greg Monks has got past James Murphy, but meanwhile, he's under threat now from GMAC, from Graham Macdonald, and also now from Chris Hutchinson and William Smith, who are going side by side. But now, it seems as though kind of arguably Stephen Nuttall has what he wants in a running partner, but probably not Gordon Sawyer behind him, who probably isn't going to run with him too much, but probably at least is going to try and make a move for the lead himself and then try and pull away.
To answer my own question then, no, he hasn't broken the toe, because within about 2 corners, or more importantly 2 straights, Gordon Sawyer was right back on the tail of Stephen Nuttall. So we do once again have battle joined at the head of the field. Then Nuttall still leads, but Gordon Sawyer with him now, and Henry Heaton in third. There you can just see the orange car with the white roll cage. That's William Smith, the man with whom Henry Heaton tangled on the first lap of race number 2 earlier on. Back to the 310Rs, there's James Wingfield, the red and fluorescent yellow number 13 car, third place in class. It's Lars Hoffman that, as has more often than not been the case so far today, that's leading the category. He doesn't always lead for a full lap at a time, but he does often seem to be ahead at the line, and that is the key really, isn't it? He loses the lead into turn 1 to Pete Walters, but it doesn't really matter how much of the race you lead, as long as you lead at the start-finish line on the last lap. And the drivers often spend the first sort of 18 minutes of the race just working out, okay, where do I need to be on that last lap to get to the line first? And I think Lars Hoffmann more or less has that covered.
He is one of those people who he's always usually in the right place at the right time when it's required. So effectively, he's always in a decent position to score the most amount of points that he can. He used it for an opportunity. He's trying to take that one going up the inside, trying to get past Pete Walters, but couldn't quite make that one stick. And still, Wingfield and Cook are giving him quite a few headaches. As we now have seen I think the 7 UK cars are about to come through. They've gone through already, I think, yes, with Nuttall, Sawyer, Heaton, Monks and McDonald in the top 5. So Murphy's dropped down to 6th. They've been losing a few places steadily as we keep on watching this battle for the lead in the 310Rs. Walters now has the inside line on the run towards the Robert chicane, and Hoffmann then, we said about being ever the opportunist, slips past into the lead. Now he takes his turn at the front of the field once more. So the order then, Hoffmann, Walters, Wingfield and Cook, they're the definitive 4 at the front of the pack. Then 5th place in no man's land is Andy Lees. Remember, he started towards the back of the 310R entry in this race, and they're going to go 4 abreast of the lead down towards Redgate. Where have we seen that before? And then behind, for 6th and 7th, I saw Ben Lopez Appleton going wheel to wheel with Harry Landy. Oh, big tank slapper there for James Wingfield on the exit. But also in there for the rest of the top 10, we've got Chris Moore, who he's doing well after he retired from race 1 earlier on. And then we've got Murgatroyd and Christie. And it looks as though, as they're coming down the pit straight now, the leading 310R group aren't going to be long before they're caught by the front runners in the 7 UKs. And that, as we saw on race 1, Andy, always gets interesting.
Yes, because as the tail enders in the 310Rs go through the crater curves, the leaders in the 7 UKs are at the top of the hill. They're about to come into sight now, I think. There they go. It is still Gordon Sawyer leader, or it was when they went into Redgate. Yep, still is coming out of it. Stephen Nuttall with him. And then Henry Heaton 3rd.
Sorry, I thought for saying you said Nuttall in front of Sawyer, but other way around, so ignore me.
No, I do occasionally get things wrong, Scott, so fair enough. No, on that occasion, Gordon Sawyer was leading going into Redgate, still led coming out. It was tight, though, 51 thousandths between them at the start of the lap, so they essentially were sharing the lead, really. Sawyer has it, though, now, as they go towards McLean's corner, but Stephen Nuttall would quite like to relieve him of it. Henry Heaton 3rd, and then there's this gap back, isn't there, to Greg Monks in 4th, James Murphy 5th, Grand Macdonald 6th, William Smith in 7th. Smith's kind of got up to that group and hasn't really made any progress through it yet, so is he biding his time, or is that as good as it's going to get for him?
I think it just shows how really competitive the front-running runners in these upgraded cars really are. As we saw Monks and Murphy going side by side. Likewise for the lead, we see Stephen Nuttall going up the inside of Gordon Sawyer and Henry Heaton just watching on. Murphy's back up to 4th place now. We'll start to chase after the top 3 with Monks, McDonald and William Smith in the mix. But yeah, going back to the point you made, Andy, it looks like kind of maybe just shows how competitive these cars really are, because when you race them on the limit, these top 7 or 8 drivers are all very evenly matched as Sawyer goes back round the outside for the lead at Redgate and they go side by side for 4th. So because they're very evenly matched at the front, you've got this group of 7, 8, 9 drivers that are incredibly close in terms of ability, which is probably making it tough for him to get in the mix. And also remember, he hasn't raced for 2 years either, so he's getting back into the groove and it's getting very tricky. It almost got tricky to the old hairpin there as Heaton looked up the inside for 2nd place on Sawyer heading towards the towards the right-hander, but looks like the 91 had it just about had it covered as they head now up towards the top of the circuit at McLean's.
Yes, they do. 4th place battle raging here. James Murphy looking to get past Greg Monks, who's having a good outing here, Greg Monks. He finished the previous race in 6th, running 4th at the moment, but Murphy's up the inside of him now, going towards Coppice Corner. Monks really tried to get over to the right-hand side there to block that, but he just couldn't quite get there in time. So Murphy goes through, but then Murphy drifts a bit wide coming out of Coppice, and so Monks is back up the inside again. Now, this is a real drag race because neither of them have a slipstream from anybody else. They've both got cars queuing up behind them as well, who will get into the chicane first. At the head of the pack, it is Gordon Sawyer just about keeping Stephen Nuttall behind him, but that's changing almost by the corner. In the group behind, it is going to be Monks that comes off the chicane ahead of James Murphy. Murphy back alongside him, but it's 3 wide for the race lead just in front of them. In the 310Rs, it's almost as close as well, as Lars Hoffmann here has James Wingfield up alongside him now. Hoffmann with the white nose on the inside line will just about hang on to the 310R lead. This is always it's the age-old trouble of having the 7 UKs and the 310Rs on the same grid. You never know where to look because there are titanically battles in both classes. Oh, Gordon Sawyer with a big lock up on the inside of Henry Heaton, and I think the fact they didn't make contact there had as much to do with Henry Heaton's reactions as it did Gordon Sawyer's.
Gordon Sawyer's he's always someone who's not afraid to get his elbows out and make a risky pass whenever it's needed, and so he had to make a move there, and I suspect he probably did that because he wanted to get in front, because he could probably see that there were lapped cars coming up, so he wanted to make sure that he wasn't having to try and get past Heaton and everyone else in front of him here. And look, the leaders in the 7 UKs are already on the tail end of the sort of the mid-pack for these 310R cars. This is going to be incredibly tricky. We saw this course in race 2 earlier on, and this is going to be so close. Actually, we see this is the leaders here in the 310s, which have switched around. So it's Harry Cook in the lead now, second for Walters, third for Hoffman, and a change on for fourth. James Wingfield's the big shuffler in terms of going backwards. Andy Lee's up into fourth now, and then side by side between Andrew Murgatroyd, who's he battling with there? I think that's Jeff Price, I think he's battling with. Yes, it is. And as they go down the straight, they're 3-4 abreast as the 7UK cars pick their way through the field. And Nuttall now leads by 0.7 of a second, but they've got a small gap now to Monks, who's now ahead of Henry Heaton. Something must have happened in the traffic between when we last saw them at the old hairpin, up round through Coppice and McLean's.
Saw a puff of tyre smoke then from the top of the hill, but I'm not quite sure who the culprit was. Oh, that'll be it. 2 cars on the grass coming down the hill. 3, in fact.
One's Jeppy Fillet, well, I can recognise the other one, possibly maybe Harry Landy.
Yeah, I think you might be right. And then there was a third one further up the hill as well. So that's been a big sort out.
And they were together on track. They were sort of 8th and 9th on track together. So I imagine possibly the two of them have come together.
And out of the window, I can see, I think Gordon Sawyer off going through Schwantz Curve. There's a yellow and black car pointing the wrong way
I think you're
on
right.
the grass. And we're not seeing it on the screens, but I just caught a flash of colour out of my window.
It is Gordon Sawyer.
Oh, no. So that must have been contact as well then, as they presumably, as they've been trying to work their way through the 310Rs, and either he's made contact with another 7UK driver or one of the cars from the slower class. So there's going to be a bit of big sort out in the 7UKs, and the 310Rs come down into the chicane with now 5 cars for the lead. Andy Leak's making pretty storming progress through the order here, and then not far behind them is Stephen Nuttall, who has also shed a wing on the back left corner. So was it Sawyer into the back of Nuttall maybe, which puts Sawyer off the road? Through Redgate they go. Lars Hoffman now goes back to the 310 lead. Oh, I've missed Caterham racing over the winter, Scott. This is good.
Yeah, likewise. It's one of my favourite forms of racing personally. I absolutely love it when they get stuck in here and, oh, this is not where Nuttall needs to be. You can see him, he's weaving around them and either saying, please just let me through, but he just about gets through just in some cases. That just shows the calibre of driver Steve Nuttall is, where he's found somehow some gap to get through. Oh, almost 3 abreast into the old hairpin. That was always going to end in tears if they stayed side by side that way. But this is just the fun. It's the fun and also the terror of multi-class racing, particularly the Caterhams, where you've really got to pick your lines through here very carefully. James Murphy thinking, see you later, boys, or maybe not. He's he's made contact. Off goes Lars Hoffman. More contact. That's Grand Macdonald and also William Smith into the gravel, and that possibly was the catalyst, maybe, of trying to get through that. And William Smith also gesticulating, saying, what on earth was that all about? What it's done is it's taken out some of the potential podium contenders for 7UK and one of the contenders for the race-leading 310Rs. Absolute pandemonium at McLean's.
What did you say about Lars Hoffman earlier on? He's always in the right place at the right time.
Apart from then,
yeah, because he did nothing wrong. He was pinched in the middle, had a car to his left, he had a car to his right coming through, which I think was James Murphy, wasn't it? Murphy got his braking wrong, locked up, ran wide into the 310Rs. That Lease as well,
yes,
I think.
Andy Lee's also involved in that as well, so that's 4 cars off around at McLean's and Coppice.
There's no way they're going to carry this on the yellow flag, surely. It's going to be at least a safety car, maybe a premature end to the race, I'm afraid, because Lease's car is actually on the apex at Coppice Corner.
Yeah, unless you can get that move, that has to be, at the very least, you're absolutely right, a safety car, not a red flag. They're still racing at the moment until they decide what to do, but surely before they get there, they're going to have to decide pretty quickly what to do, whether they do throw the red or the safety car is quickly scrambled. Another one off. That's Tom Eden off the road. There's Caterham's everywhere.
That's up at Coppice.
That's up at Coppice. Obviously, something else has kicked off just after that's happened.
Oh, dear.
And that's got a wheel off as well. That's the front right wheel. And the engine cover's off that too.
So is that linked to... So was the Andy Lease incident maybe a separate incident? We've got the safety car out, by the way, although with only 4 minutes left, I'm not convinced we'll get much racing in after this, but we'll wait and see. But yeah, I wonder if there was a secondary incident, because obviously there was that big sort out at McLean's. That will have delayed quite a few drivers as they tried to avoid it. That will have then affected the momentum of the pack going into Coppice. There may have even been 1 or 2 wounded cars going even slower than they should be. And then there's been another big element of bunching into Coppice, clearly, which has caused a secondary incident, it would seem. So either way, that's taken quite a number of drivers out of the race, which we never like to see, especially when they are potential race winners. It leaves us with Stephen Nuttall leading in the 7UK element of the race, and Walters at the front of the 310Rs from Harry Cook in second.
Yeah, let's quickly confirm that then. So it's Nuttall from Monks from Murphy at the top 3 in the 7UKs. Henry Heaton 4th. Chris Hutchinson, who, if you told him he'd be potentially getting a top 5 from his first 7UK race, he'd probably think that you were having a laugh with him. But certainly, I guess, while there wasn't the ideal way to take a 5th place if it is going to end like this, then obviously he'll take a 5th place any way he can get it, I suppose. Neil Fraser's currently 6th, Rob Watts is 7th, and then we have Johnny Jarrett, David Yates, and then Gordon Sawyer, who did get back going again, but he's actually down at the bottom of the top 10. And that's then where we can go to the 310Rs overall, because then it's Pete Walters who leads the way from James Wingfield and Harry Cook. Andrew Murgatroyd 4th, and then Ben Lopez-Appleton is showing that he does have a penalty, because there is an exclamation mark next to his name on the timing screen. But what that penalty is, we haven't been told yet. So currently sat in 5th, but that'll be a provisional 5th, because he'll be pushed down the order thanks to the jump start. And then rest of the top 10 shows us Christie, Fillet, Welch. Hoffman's still 9th after all of that, I mean, because he didn't really make contact with anyone. He sort of just got edged out wide and was found with nowhere to go. But he managed to pretty much track his way through the gravel and was very lucky not to get caught up with the 27 UK cars of McDonald and William Smith heading off the road in the separate accident moments later. He was very lucky to avoid that, and he's managed to get back on the roads in 9th position ahead of Chris Moore. So, yeah, lots. In the words of Matt Neal once, that's going to take some clearing up.
Isn't it just? And I think it will probably take longer than 2 minutes and 3 seconds to do so. So I think, unfortunately, that might be the end of the Caterham racing for the weekend. We've got someone limping into the pit lane I can see down below. That is
Henry Williams, car 49.
Okay, now he would have been in and around Giuseppe Fillet and the couple of the other 310Rs in difficulties, wouldn't he? Certainly started near Giuseppe on the grid. So I suppose he's had some damage, although I couldn't see any obvious damage on the car, maybe a bit of right rear damage to the suspension. In theory, if we went racing at the end of this lap, we could get a lap of racing in before the checkered flag, but that ain't happening, is it? Because we've still got marshals, recovery vehicles, medical crews all up on the track. I wouldn't panic too much about seeing the medical crews up there. I think that's just a precautionary thing, but there were quite a few big hits there, actually, and it is testament to the safety of these cars. We talk about performance a lot when we talk about Caterhams, but these cars are obviously built to the highest safety standards, Scott, and they need to be, because with racing this close, it's inevitable. Sometimes it's going to go wrong. Sometimes you're going to need those safety features to protect the drivers. And as the checkered flag does now go out a lap early, as we suspected it might do, we can all breathe a sigh of relief that everyone appears to be okay after that, after what was at least one, arguably two, fairly sizable shunts.
Yeah, and they're quite physical things to drive as well, not just in terms of the safety, but they're also quite physical. I mean, I had the privilege of driving a couple just a week and a bit ago at Donington Park, and even just driving the 270R, and I've had a go in the one of the last year's specification 420R cars, and they are physical cars to drive, so they take a lot of strength out of you. So it kind of not only has to be fairly sort of well sorted fitness-wise in many cases, but of course you have to rely on the fact that some of these cars do have to take unfortunately take a hit every now and again. Of course, you have to trust the fact that especially with the 7 UK cars being purpose-built cars, you have to trust that they're going to be able to survive it. And it looks as though, unfortunately, even though we've lost 3 of them, all 3 appear to have stood up to whatever impacts they were part of. So and it appears on the surface, as you say, that all the drivers are okay. And just to echo the point that Andy was making, the medical crews only go out purely, at the very least, in any accident case, purely just as a precaution, because while the driver might look okay on the surface, it only takes a check over the medical centre to find something that the rescue teams or the marshals didn't spot initially. So they always go there just in case. Well, for the record, this is how the race finishes then. Stephen Nuttall picks up his 2nd win of the weekend in the 7 UKs from Greg Monks and James Murphy. Henry Heaton finishes 4th. Chris Hutchinson will be a delighted 5th in much as he can in circumstances. Then from Neil Fraser, Rob Watts, Johnny Jarrett, David Yates and Gordon Sawyer. Then we move into the 310Rs, but Pete Walters picks up his 2nd victory of the weekend from James Wingfield and Harry Cook, followed by Andrew Murgatroyd, Douglas Christie, Giuseppe Fillet, Ben Lopez-Appleton, who I'm sure will get a penalty and be moved down from where he's in 7th. And it's Welch, Lars Hoffman, who survived that at the start of all that incident, to finish 9th, ahead of Chris Moore. And Gary Curtis, Jeff Price and Harry Landy rounds out the finishes. And then just the cars that didn't make it. Of course, we lost Henry Williams, who pitted, Luke Fryer, Martin Gleich. And then, of course, the cars that also involved those incidents, William Smith, Grand Macdonald, Tom Eden and Andy Lees. So, again, I echo, it's never how you want a race to end, of course, and obviously on the surface, even though they do appear to, we do hope that everyone involved in that is okay, and that any repairs need to be made aren't too expensive to get them out in time in a few weeks at Knock Hill in Fife for Scotland, which should be quite an entertaining event for them. But, yeah, it's been a fantastic weekend all round at Caterham Racing, but I think everyone will echo that while we all love kind of hard battles and exciting moments, to end a race like that, even on the safety car, that's never the ideal way.
Eventful end to that last race, of course, but we've got the winner here for the 7 UKs in Stephen Nuttall. Stephen, that's your 2nd win of the weekend. Obviously, not the way he wanted the race to end, but a win's a win, and it means that he probably got maybe enough points to lead the championship. But for that race, that was up until the point where it was neutralised with the safety car. That was Another frantic one at the front.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I hope everyone's okay who had an incident. I think I could see them at the sides. They seem fine, so good luck with all that. But yeah, I knew that would be the case. You know, last day, last race with the mixed grid, so it was going to be very exciting. So that was definitely a more exciting race, shall we say. Had good pace again, good stuff with Gordon at the start. I think we managed to get away, but he was definitely up for a fight today, so there was no sense of working together. It was like who's going to sort of want to win this the most. So really good scrap, and then I think a few more got involved there. I think we came on the 310s, and that sort of brought the pack a little bit, which just gave me a bit of breathing room at the end. And as you say, safety car came out, and you could see that was going to be the end of the race at that stage. So, but yeah, happy with the weekend results. I think that's right. It should put me top of the championship, so chuffed to bits with that.
And of course, it's incredible because some of the new guys coming in, obviously, who come up the ranks first time in the 7UKs, like James, Greg, Graham obviously coming up as well, and Chris and a couple of guys coming back. You got some really stiff competition, not from the guys just from last year, but for the guys coming in this year. This is a really competitive field this year.
No, really. So it's a bigger grid and competitive, as you say. They're all fast and they've all won the championships respectively, first and second from last year. So you sort of expect that, but they're racy as well. So it's going to be a tough old year, I think.
Pete, again, just saying to Stephen, of course, up until the point where we had the unfortunate safety car, fantastic race at the front. Obviously, not how anyone wants to see a race to end, but end of the day, a win's a win, and you've taken 2 this weekend. So, impressive weekend for you all round.
Yeah, happy with how it went. Generally, it's a weekend. Nice haul of points. Just hope everyone's okay, to be honest. At this point, we just want to make sure everyone's back and good. Again, just big for the guys I was racing with. Some of these guys are stepping up to 310. It was really nice to actually be on track with them, wheel to wheel. There's some good races out there, so it's going to be a hard year. But again,
it's nice to have you back as well, because of course you took the sporadic races last year in many cases, where it's nice to have you back in a full season. You must feel like you can really go for the championship this year. Yeah,
the car's feeling good. Last year was always going to be a down year for me even before COVID, so it was actually a fortunate timing. But yeah, hopefully I can go for every round and take each race as it comes.
How are you feeling about Knockhill?
It's a long way away. I live in Kent.
Same.
The last time we did it in reverse. So although I've been there, it's a new track, so it's going to be exciting.
Well, there you get your trophy, but well done. We'll see you in Knockhill, but go and enjoy it. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Right, Dad, it was Harry! Second place in the trophy presented by, well, apparently not his dad, a very small person. It was James. Give that to you, James. No, yeah. And in first place, where's Jeff, Pete's dad? There he is. The trophy presented by his dad. It was Pete. In third place, it was James Lee. In second place, genuinely with a Lee presenting his trophy, it was Greg. And the second win of the year, trophy presented by his mechanic Lee, it was Steve.
So that was the last race of the weekend, and what was very eventful, very exciting and fantastic racing from Caterham Motorsport all round, and what a place to do it here at Donington Park. Congratulations to all the winners, and of course now the circus heads off in a few weeks' time to north of the border, because it's Knockhill in Scotland on June 12th and 13th. Make sure you tune in for all the action on the Caterham cars, Facebook page and YouTube, and until then, we'll see more action from Caterham Motorsport next time. But take care, and we'll see you very soon.